Yeah. What's up, everybody? Whoever's here, whoever will be here. We just want to know if rim of his coffee cup, his thing, slurping his coffee. Unbelievable.
I hope it sounds like a tornado.
I can't stand this dude, man.
I sound like a dirt bike when I drink coffee.
I can't stand you.
Bro, why did somebody say that I had honey ears like honey bun ears? I'm leaving, bro. I said, oh, they not say that my ears look like cinnamon rolls. I'm going. I'm not putting up with this.
I don't have to put up with this.
Oh, I didn't come here for this.
Yeah, we was all I'm trying to figure out if Drew slurping on his coffee sound crazy. It is irritating to me.
So the feedback.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. You get it?
Mm-hmm.
Are you tagging folks?
My boy asked me to tag him in the next one that we did.
Oh, that's what's up.
And I said, absolutely.
Richard Hill.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what Richard Hill's talking about.
That's my people.
Okay.
Good
Brother
dude.
Rich.
Good dude, too.
Where's he from?
Southeast, San Diego.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Cool. Brother Richard. So, welcome to, what's up, Perry? Welcome to the Bishop and I.
Bro, you playing fuskas on there?
Bro, my legs are straight out.
Somebody kicked me.
And we got I always say my little bro, but he's like 100 pounds more than me.
All good.
Drew Phillips. And man, it's been a minute since we've been together, the dream team. It's been a minute.
And the bishop, don't forget the bishop over there.
That's what I said. I told him, I say him first. The bishop. And as I always say, man, it's always cool to be with my bro Bishop Bowser. Today should be a good topic. You know, a time to discuss some things. And one of the things, and so it's good to be with you, Bishop, as always, man.
Yeah,
so much love and respect for you, bro. And I think these last 2 weeks have a good, I don't know if it's a testing of something, but a good challenge or like a good recognition of some things that we need to do to make sure that we maintain friendships, especially in the Black community, especially when things mean so much as you do to me. So
likewise,
definitely glad that we were able to work that out in Big Dog Phil, my main man Drewski.
Yes, sir.
And you're always a mess. I was looking forward to this week, what I saw post, and I haven't seen any. So
I won't post it. I'll probably do it on Sunday. Today.
Okay.
It's just hilarious how.
Yeah. No, it's good.
It's just like a friendly roast session.
Yeah.
But the great thing about it is I tell people, post a picture, and I tell you what I saw.
So just so y'all know, if you want to, Drew does something that is what I saw. So you send him a picture, and he will create something surrounding what he saw. So if you guys want to play the game, if you're big enough for it, if you feel like you're mature enough and you have enough confidence in yourself, you can leave a picture in the comments here too. And
as a matter of fact, y'all should do that during this watch. And while we do this, I'll respond in kind and I'll let y'all know what I saw when you posted your photo.
Maestro,
it's always friendly and lighthearted, but
yeah,
I try my best to make it hilarious.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So good stuff. So as we talk tonight, we will talk about Bloomberg, specifically some of the issues surrounding that, touch on some relationship stuff, just whatever that means. And then I just said wherever Drew Phillips' shenanigans take us, because he's a man full of shenanigans. Tonight, if we can, if there is any interaction, I'd love for us to be cognizant of that. So I'll probably be watching it a little bit to maybe like step in every once in a while if we get people that are, because I notice a lot of times we'll miss things that people say. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we do.
Drew, you get a lot of comments on your thing. So let's just try to as much as we can, if y'all don't mind, be a little more interactive with what we're doing. So, but anyway, so yeah, so one of the, oh, I see Bishop got it. Normally I wear a shirt that describes something that I believe in. We kind of got in the habit of trying whenever we can to wear something.
With me.
Yeah, to try to wear a shirt or a hoodie or something that sort of represents something. And so today I just got my Minnesota Wild. This is the state of Minnesota hockey team, professional hockey team. So I'm feeling kind of Minnesota with the passing of my pops.
Down I met down there. Was she up there? Cause I know she is actually from up there.
Which one? Which one did you?
I forget what's her name. Cause follow her on Twitter. Instagram.
Oh, Tish.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, I was like, my cousin that came, yeah, Tish. That's my niece.
Oh,
That's my niece.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my niece. Yeah, Tish.
That's why it threw y'all like cousins.
Yeah. No, absolutely, man. She's doing phenomenal. She actually.
Oh yeah, I see her on Instagram, but she doing it.
Well, and the good thing about Tish is that, one of the good things, she did a tribute to my dad, and
Because I
I
know
don't think the pastor was really, really happy with one of the words that she was using.
Oh.
But it was very my dad. So we just said, let's take the shot. It wasn't absolutely not meant to be disrespectful at all. It was just something.
Hey, if it came from the heart, I'm okay with it.
I mean, and I get it, but she did such an incredible job. She kind of encapsulated my dad in a 5-minute piece about her.
So right there, good job.
She did. She's phenomenal. I love her a lot.
My boy Charles, poet, says he's sorry to hear about you, pops.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. One of the things that we know is that is a reality for everybody. We're all going that way. Yeah, absolutely.
Folks.
Absolutely. Terry Thompson, what's up, sweet girl? That's my homegirl from high school.
Hey, Terry.
Yeah. I used to use her bike. She had a Nishiki bike.
Nice.
And I used to borrow her mom, still live in Dago, whatever.
Nice.
She went to Clark, Atlanta. Sweet sister. She's a teacher now,
yeah.
doing really well. Tasha Williamson was good.
Hey, Tasha.
My main man, Joseph Lopez, man, Tasha she got almost 18,000 votes right now with $6,300.
Mm-hmm.
She had a budget of $6,300 and she's climbing up to 18,000 votes. That's incredible. Ramo always joins us every week. Thank you. We appreciate you, sis. Salam alaikum to you. And Arabic.
Ramo was female?
Ramo Abdi.
Yeah, that's female?
Yeah.
Nice.
Joseph Lopez, this brother's a good dude. He has a program up in Oceanside that works with at-risk youth that are have gang injunctions and stuff on them and that are kind of high risk to recidivate. So they do one-to-one mentorship. It's youth advocacy, youth development. It's in Oceanside. I can't remember the name of it.
That's good, bro.
Seems really good. They're having a lot of success. So.
Nice.
So, Bishop, your shirt. What's that?
In the stops campaign, pretty soon you're going to start seeing a hashtag that says #protect, and you'll find out what that means. A lot I can't talk about right now, but a project we've been working on for about 2 years, the interracial profiling here in the city of San Diego. And so we're going to start seeing some of that, the campaign, and seeing some of those things happen. We did go to the mayor's state of the city address and for this. There in the stops, because that was part of our protest there at the mayor's address is in the stops. That was when Campaign Zero came out with their report analyzing data, especially from AB 953, and looking at folks that have been stopped. And we know that Black people are overwhelmingly being stopped, right? So we want to end it, and it's been demonstrated. After audit report from the SDSU report on down to other reports that other folks have done to Campaign Zero. And so we just wanted to stop. And that's what this is about, in the stop. But, a lot of times what you find is that people will want anything to complain about, right? But they don't have any creative ideas on solutions. If they do have solutions, they're not putting any effort in to see that those solutions are implemented. So we're not just about talking about stop doing something, but we're talking about solutions too. that we believe that will transform policing in San Diego and how they police our communities.
That's good. It's beautiful. Good. Glad to hear that. That's especially after this latest video that came out with, and it was a you saw when the police shot the young man in the back of the head. Did you see that?
I don't like to look at that kind of stuff. So
Body
my
cam.
wife told she watched.
Oh,
She saw
man.
it. My wife told
Oh
me.
man, it was horrible. It was hard to watch, and it was completely unnecessary.
Here in San Diego?
Here in San
That's
Diego,
crazy.
completely unnecessary. This guy, allegedly he was drunk and disorderly, is what they were saying. But you can look at the video. He was not throwing his hands up. Nobody called on him. He was walking with a beer in his hand, but he was just walking.
Mhm.
He wasn't doing nothing crazy. Wasn't breaking nobody's windows.
So why did they shoot him?
Well, they pulled up and cut in front of him, so he started running.
Mhm.
And so they ran and chased him down. He's putting his hands behind his back and like whatever. He reached and grabbed for the officer's gun. He pulled the gun and the holster in the holster.
Mhm.
Mind you, there's two big cops on top of this kid,
Mhm.
on the top of this guy.
Mhm.
And so he had the gun with the holster, no way to shoot nobody, couldn't do nothing with it. And the police said, he got my gun, shoot him. And the officer pulled his weapon out, pow, and shot him in the back of the head, killed him. For grabbing his gun in the holster, he couldn't do nothing with it.
Mhm.
And typically the way that those holsters are made is
So you got it.
there's a trigger action with your finger, there's different kind, or there's a pressure action one and you can set the pressure. I would imagine, and I don't have any facts to back this up, but that theirs is more of a double action, so there's no way. So he would have had to use two hands to get it out. I just think it was unnecessary. It shows something. I don't know how to describe what I'm trying to say, but I feel like there's a fear that pervades.
Was the kid black?
He was to be honest, I don't remember.
Was the police officer white?
Yes, I think he was Hispanic,
Native, something like that, right?
or he was Filipino.
Okay.
I'm so
I know
sorry.
he wasn't. I know.
I listened to.
Trying to say race played an issue or anything like that?
Well, that and just it's business as usual. To the family, sorry that I can't remember even the young brother's name. I'm so bad with that. I'm sorry about that. I shared it on my Facebook. I can't remember his name. I don't know any of the like facts about it. Well, I remember the day that the shooting happened. I remember that, but there was nothing to go off of. We didn't know anything, and then all of a sudden on Thursday or Friday, the video got released publicly, and I watched it, and I was just so disturbed. I didn't even focus on nothing else. I just couldn't believe what I was seeing.
Yeah.
Tasha Williamson went to Oak Park. They met with the captain of Southeastern Division and some community members, and I believe one of his family members, to talk about it. And there were some facts shared there. I watched her YouTube or her Facebook Live on that. So just bad though. To me, it was totally unnecessary. I'm tired of them making excuses for why they're doing it, and I think they should be ashamed of themselves.
But you know what though? There's it's almost like an engagement thing that I always think of, right? Like, how do you engage somebody in, a situation like that? There's, I get it, everything depends on everything else, and, things are happening, mile a minute and all this other stuff, but it's just like,
At the very beginning.
from the initial, right? When you engage someone, the dude's, like if he's visibly intoxicated and all this other stuff, it's almost like, okay, what would I do, or what would someone with the proper training do to, bring a situation like this to an agreeable close or solution or to a point? And it's almost like, if you get out and start running, are you going to chase him? I mean, I guess, right? But when I do catch him, if I can catch him, am I going to allow him to wrestle the gun out of my hand or off my? For me, that's never happened, especially if I got a pepper spray and a taser, right? So for me, I'm always like, how do you justify lethal force, right? Like when I was in the military, they drilled that into me. Like, you have to be able to justify it, right? Clear present danger and all this other stuff. But a whole bunch of things have to go wrong or have to go right in order for you to justifiably pull your weapon out to shoot to kill somebody. And I don't like to judge other people's decision makings, because it's just not right and it ain't fair.
Yeah.
But the thing is I always say that never would happen if I was involved. Oh, this dude drunk, he's disorderly, whatever. I probably would be like, hey man, why don't you go on home and get some rest? Especially when no phone call, and nobody called and said that he was actually doing nothing. I probably wouldn't even have engaged him. There's just bigger fish to fry. There's just worse things out there to have to deal with than to deal with some drunk person on the sidewalk. And then to me, like, you can't tell me that I can't think of a scenario other than him getting the gun out of my possession and then trying to use it on me, right? But obviously being bigger than everybody, that this kind of has its privileges. But at the same time, I could just never ever see that happening to where I could reasonably or rationalize shooting someone and killing them. Because the first thing that happened, what happened? Well, we saw he was drunk on the sidewalk. And was he harming somebody? Was he breaking into things? Like, what was
you got to ask yourself at the end of the day, is somebody walking with a beer in their hand that's drunk? Who cares if he was drunk I don't even know if he was drunk, but who cares? Who cares if he was breaking windows in people's cars? Was it worth shooting this dude in the back of his head?
Now that's criminal.
But is it criminal enough to be killed? And here's the other part that I thought was interesting.
Yep.
Two things. One, when the police got it, when they shot him, they got the gun and the police set the gun to the side of him and continued to attend to the guy. Now, if you're that worried about your gun, why you sit it down beside you? Why you didn't get up and put it in the police car, or secure it somewhere? Because you're nervous and you're frantic and you're doing whatever. I get, but my point is that if you don't have the presence of mind, and I'm sure that was, I would imagine that was the first time he's ever killed somebody. So who knows?
He get no warning. He didn't say like, drop it, I'm gonna shoot you.
They kept redacting audio, so I don't know what they were saying. They redact the audio, so they probably was. But my point, and then the second thing is, I guess this officer, from what I'm hearing, is on administrative leave right now for being drunk and disorderly and fighting in public.
Yeah, what is he doing?
After this, and this whole unit has been in trouble. These are things that I've been hearing from people who are close.
In the Southeast?
Yeah, Southeast Division, right on the edge of Southeast and Mid-City.
He probably messed up too.
He's messed up because he shot, but his partner was the one who said to shoot. So I know he's probably like, man, you told me to do this, homie. Like, and I'm just so man. Here's what. Let me say this though, and I think this is fair, because number one, why you ain't getting this dude no help? That's probably why he's drinking and out fighting, because he probably hates his life. Mm-hmm. He'll probably hang himself. I'm not saying I'm saying he'll probably he could potentially kill himself simply because of the guilt of making a bad decision. And the unfortunate thing is that there's not a culture that allows you to own up to your decisions and reconcile. You can't do that. It's sad.
They most definitely got to look into the individuals that shoot him. He got to shoot him.
My friend Poet Allen said that the guy's name was Toby
Dillard.
Toby Edward Dillard.
Yes.
My friend Jay asked, does San Diego have a community police academy?
Yeah.
And they do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And Poet also
40
said
days after the killing. Yep.
which is crazy.
40 days.
What's that?
No,
40 days after the killing happened, they released the video.
Yeah, because they would have to release it anyway after 45 days.
Yeah.
It's law now that they have to release. Unless there's some type of investigation, they messed up their investigation, they have to release it after 45 days.
And it's interesting to see Chip.
And the other issue, I know some of the things I heard when my wife was playing it, because I was like, I've got enough trauma to be looking at that kind of stuff.
Yes.
But when I was hearing it, the issue, that kind of issue that I had is the narrative, that this life should stay out of it. You shouldn't give no narrative on.
I can't stand that, bro. You get on the video and say, try to create a narrative about what happened.
Yeah,
don't do that.
Just
don't
play
do
it out.
that.
See, that was crazy because I don't know if y'all remember, I was involved in a mass shooting in La Jolla, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
A lot of people got hurt. One
Yeah.
girl was killed.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, police chief little short
Zimmerman.
female looked like a softball coach, come out there. This does not appear to be race related.
I know I got so hot when she said
Bro,
that.
I want to jump through the window.
I got so hot when she said that. Yeah.
This dude,
Yeah.
he even told, and it's crazy. I mean, it was just so obvious, and I was just like, "What?" And I remember because I was inside dealing with, they was asking a whole bunch of questions, and I saw when that came out on the television, and I literally wanted to go outside and be like, "You must be out your mind if you don't think this is race related.
Yeah, that's right.
You must be out your mind."
It's funny, not funny, but ironic how that's always the thing. Like, let's try to make this as sterile as possible so we can be able to handle it. It's like, no, let's deal with the facts. Let's deal with the facts of what happened, dude. Who cares?
It's terrible, but let's not sugarcoat it.
Right.
Man.
Right? See, so
Let me see. What's up, Kyra Green? Dr. Green, I'm sorry, Queen. Dr. Green, you know what I'm saying? That's Dr. Green right there, statistician. She said thank you. She said she appreciates or she said, hi, y'all, I appreciate the thoughtful dialogue.
Right
We
on.
appreciate you watching too a lot. Thank you. And one of these days soon, I want to get you here, Kyra, so we can talk about statistics.
What kind of doctor is
some of the things. I don't know. She's a statistician though. Like that's
She
all.
does
She's really
She's
smart.
still, right?
Oh, really?
She does.
Remember that organization?
Put me on the spot.
Well,
When you
it's not CPI, is it? Something.
CPI? Yeah.
I know she's
It says
director of it.
when you put your what you do in the comments if you want to, you don't have to, but she's really, really smart. They deal with numbers and they look at things statistically to be able to say, and they deal with a lot of low propensity voters, and they look at particular areas in the community to see where the needs are, where some of the, what are some of the things that need to be focused. And most of it is politically. Sociology, okay, CPI, she's a sociologist. And so what their company does now is look at different segments of our society to try to look at what they do, what they need, and how to actually address it. How do you get the resources there? What would it look like to do that? And they do really in-depth studies on stuff like food deserts, just whatever you can think of, they're involved in. And she's really, really smart, and I'm just super happy to know her. And she's a sister running something that's extremely important, and that really makes me proud to know her. And I saw her and met her brilliant daughter, Penelope. I think that is what her name was. Beautiful little girl, and she's smart too. She got her daughter playing these math games and stuff. So anyway, so the narrative, police, all this stuff, they always want to try to make it sterile. We talked about that, and then somebody was going to say something, or somebody.
Floyd said that the DA is still deciding whether to prosecute the officers, which is, we know how that goes.
Well, yeah, we know what's going to happen with that.
Nothing.
Right, nothing's going to happen.
Or they might go after them, then they're going to be found not guilty.
Yeah.
They can do some kangaroo investigation.
Yeah.
And it's going to be like, oh, no, we found a wrongdoer.
Yeah. Well, that's, and I don't, and I think maybe, I don't know. There's a lot of, I think people underestimate the pain that is inflicted on entire communities when these kinds of obvious wrongdoings, just obvious wrongdoings that happen, and it's just like, oh well.
Let me ask you a question though. We're in our 40s, we've been watching atrocities happen for the last 40 years. What happens after
57 for me.
Right.
You 57?
Yeah.
57 for you, right? What happens after you see enough atrocities over and over? What happens to you as a people, as a group, as a demographic? You get numb to it. You turn it on to go. Like most of the people out, when they see terrible stuff, it's just like, let me guess, right? They just automatically start assuming, the particulars.
I don't know, but I don't know if I would say numb though. You know what I mean? I think
You're
that
not
is
as
what
shocked as you used to be.
But I think so something has to happen to that. Like the average person can't see that.
Okay. So
And then just be like,
Freddie, so let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
When you saw, as it relates to law enforcement and brutality and beating people up, when you saw the Rodney King beating on TV, What was your reaction?
I was like, whoa.
And when
They
was
beat
that?
him with sticks.
That was
2002.
25 years ago, right?
2002 or 1997 or something?
93, before I was still in high school. That was 25 years ago. That's crazy when you think about it. That happened 25 years
And
ago.
think about this. My dad was alive. My dad was alive when Emmett Till.
Yeah.
When Emmett Till was murdered, my dad saw that whole thing happen.
Right.
It left to the whole other thing.
And my sister's dad, right after Emmett Till got killed, he was walking down the street. He was telling me this when he was just here last year. I think we talked about this. He was walking down the street, in Port Arthur, Texas, and the police came up and smacked him on the back of his head in 92, Tasha said. Thank you, sis. And knocked his hat off his head and said, boy, get in the car and come with us. And he was like, man, I was scared to death. And he said, this white woman says she saw you
I remember you
looking in the window or something. And he said, man, I went crazy. He said, because he was in Texas.
said, I'm dead.
He said, it's over.
Yeah.
And he said, thank God that the woman said, I told you that's not him. This is a little kid. He said this feeling of he was so relieved that he wasn't going to get killed.
Yeah.
So imagine him.
By the police.
By the police. So.
Right. But what kills me is like, there's this expectation. Respect authority, respect the police, respect this, and that, but you see and you learn. Like me, I'm 42. I see and then I learn and I witness things, and it's just like, respect the police. Those are number one people I need to be scared of. Like, I remember, growing up in Chicago on the South Side, walking home from school, police pull up right in front of us, naked out. And I'm walking back from school. My next door neighbor was with me and a couple other cats. He come over and said, all you N-words, get on the ground. It's snow and slush everywhere. So we get on the ground, right? And they walk up to us and they, what are you guys, selling drugs and all this other stuff? And I was like, nope, we in high school. Oh yeah? What high school you go to? And I was like, Tinley Park. Yeah, right. You guys are nothing but some gangsters or whatever you're saying.
Mm-hmm. Always lying.
And while this was happening, another police officer drove by and he saw me and recognized me. Pulled over, got out, said something to me, like, what's going on here? Nothing, we saw these gang members, He was like, no. These kids are high school kids. That kid right there goes to high school with my son. These aren't the guys. And it's like, oh. So he was like, yo, stand them up. Oh, and the whole time, we had to have our hands back. All of that, we face down in the snow. So they stood us up, and they was like, dust yourself off, whatever. And so then, I was looking at the police officer, and I was terrified. Police officer, like, no, stomp your head right now, boy. Just, time I grew up. And the police officer saw me and was just like, he was like, Drew, you okay? I was like, no.
Right.
I just want to go home.
Right.
I just want to go home. Now, bear in mind, it was probably a quarter mile from the bus stop to my house, straight down the street, right? And my next neighbor literally lived next door to me, right? And so then the police was off. He told the police officer, y'all go ahead and get out of here.
That other police officer was your next door neighbor?
No, the other police officer who actually stopped these police officers from harassing us, his son went to school with us.
Oh, I thought you mentioned
his son played like freshman football with us, and then he quit and all sorts of jazz. But the thing was like, so then we get home, right? And he was like, all right, y'all go ahead and get out of here. So we go home. I get there and I tell my dad what happened. And then my dad was like, do you remember the police officer's name? I was like, yeah. All right. And he was like, you want to do another? We just walking back. You should. He's like, all right, great. So we get in the van. And the next door neighbor.
Moved over 1,000 cable boxes?
Tools. My dad had tools back then. And we go to the police station. And my dad, banging on the door, police station literally 3 blocks from my house. We go over there. And my dad was like, I want to talk to whoever in charge. So whatever the wild captain, whatever his name was, he come out. And he says, one of your police officers, and I told my dad to do his last name, just have my son face down in the snow, and then my dad was like, I got, 4 boys that live in my house, and at the time it was like 3 or whatever. and it was just going over all this stuff. And I remember my dad was like telling the captain of the police was like, you don't treat my son, you don't treat my kids like any type of gang members or whatever. You know, these are some good boys. And so then the police officer tried to explain to my dad what the police were actually doing, you know, patrolling the streets and all this other stuff. And my dad was like, my sons aren't criminals. Period, right? So, you know, and having my dad do that, I remember just sitting there thinking like, man, my pops was a real one for this. Right? He was going off on the dude. So it was like, you know what, are we going to have a problem here, Mr. Phillips? I was like, and my dad was like, oh yeah, I think we already have a problem. And so then, you know, after that, some other guys came from the back and all this other jazz. And it was like, and the guy who he was talking to was a white guy. And it was like 2 or 3 other brothers on the police force at the time. And then one of them always worked at the field house. He saw me, recognized me. Well, what happened? Man, they tried to do this. This white boys rolled up on my son, threatening to kill him and all this other stuff. And the dude was like, so they sent the brother out to like apologize to my dad and all this other stuff. And my dad was like, Drew, let's go home, man. You know, he said, don't ever trust the police. Ever. You can never trust them. But my dad's distrust for the police was rooted in racism because he grew up in a time when the police was actually beating up black folks. So he survived, that, you figure in the 50s and in the 60s, right? Because my dad was born in like the mid 40s. So in the 50s and 60s, right? My dad was, he was growing up in all of that. So he was like, I don't care. You can never trust the police. Ever. The police say something to you, how you doing, officer? That's it. Like, you do not engage with the police because that is, and I was to the fact like, no, it ain't even like that. It ain't even like that. It ain't even like that. And sure enough, just every time we had a run-in with the police, it was something terrible. Like, it was just something terrible. And it was just, it was just too bad. Like, when you think about it, because it's almost like, I understand that the police have a difficult job. I get it, right? They normally show up when someone's having the worst day of their life. But how do you explain, bullying kids? How do you explain that? My boy lived across the street from me. He's one of my best friends growing up. They broke his mom's arm on some brutality, physicality. Broke her arm. Broke it, snapped it. Crazy. Yeah. And she was a woman. Yeah. You can't explain, you can't justify brutality to me. If you just over the top, you just have to admit we made a mistake. We have to make it right. Mm-hmm. Period. Because, this is now anniversary of the 50-year Edmund Pettus Bridge where they beat all them black folks up.
Sick the dogs on and did all
of that. Now listen, with the tree bark and all, with the fire department blasting these people with hoses and all this other stuff, it was never the black folks, it was never the politicians who was writing these crazy laws into, existence and all of that. They weren't the enemy. The people that was beating up black folks was the police. Mm-hmm. So what do you tell the children of those children? Right? Like, and I remember I used to always tell my dad, like, nah, Dad, it ain't like that. Nah. He'd be like, boy, listen to me. He was like, don't ever trust the police. Ever.
Well, that's my homegirl, Terry Thompson, to your comment, Drew. She was saying, she said, are they still, let's see, let me find the comment. Here we go. Was beating or still are? And because they still are. That brother that was just murdered in Alabama, he was accused of a capital crime because the 3 white police officers came to his house to arrest him for something that he didn't do, or a probation violation or something like that. And somebody that was in the house killed the police officers. He got charged with it, and they just sentenced him to death, even though he never pulled a trigger, never killed anybody. He got the death penalty. And then the devil governor, that same day that she killed him, was dancing with some Tuskegee Airmen. Well, that's the devil. And Tasha said, our distrust of the police is rooted in their history. So true.
Oh, absolutely.
And the Pettus Bridge in
Bloody Sunday.
It was Bloody Sunday.
Yep.
100%.
Which is crazy. It is, you probably are too young when that happened, or maybe you were super young. You weren't
paying attention.
Old enough to, right. You was probably, just a young kid at the time, but I couldn't even imagine turning on my television set and seeing these atrocities. And then you gotta ask yourself, what country am I living in? Right? Like, I mean, we're literally the next generation we're 2 generations removed, well, actually 1 now, removed from segregation, right? So if you were born in the 60s and 70s, that means your parents were born in the 40s and 50s.
My dad was born in the. My dad was
You're
born
a
in
little
the
bit older
30s.
than us, right?
My dad was born in the 30s.
Yeah, so your dad was
And my
born,
mom was in the 40s.
right. So your dad, right, is, he's from the time like after the Great Depression and all this other stuff, and World War II and all this other jazz, right? So your dad very well could have served in a segregated military. Imagine that.
My dad served in everything negative. I mean, it's segregated.
Right.
100%.
Oh, he was a veteran too?
No,
Okay.
everything he did was
segregated,
just segregated. My buddy Anthony Reese said never trust the police. Because I asked him, what do you mean? He said, I thought he said never trust them. And so, so if you wanted to clear it up, and then let's move to the next. The next is a good supplement. What do you mean by that? For him? What's up, Ant? By the way, brother,
Listen.
how you doing, man?
Listen, because of, due to the nature of, my dad's history with the police,
Right.
he used to always tell me, you can never trust the police, ever. Take that out of you.
Yeah. I think that's I think from the way you grew up and the things that you.
But my thing is not cut you off. Yeah, I with me and my experience was good and bad, right? There were police officers that horrible, from being beat up to being robbed to being falsely accused, all of that kind of stuff. Not even talking the stuff like we didn't have snow, but the everyday thing of being stopped by the police, handcuffed, having guns drawn on you every day, and things like that. But there were white police officers that were also treated as decent and with respect and cared about. Now that I'm at my age now, or now that I look back at that during that time, because back then police was the enemy evil, right? Because especially like I was living
40 years ago.
But it was evil on so many different fronts, because I was a criminal, right? And a gang member, things like that. But even in the midst of all that, and them knowing who I was and what I did and what I was a part of, there were decent police officers that treated me with nothing but respect and showed that they cared, right?
Sure.
And so I think that in the midst of policing, you do have those that do care. But I think when you talk about the system and the culture, it is what you talk about when you can't trust that.
And I think that's most people that I know sentiment. Now we do have those who say, man, just bump the police in general. And I understand that too. I have excellent relationships with some police officers, and quite a few of them. I have an incredible relationship with a bunch of police officers. So I don't, and I also understand what that consistent trauma of going from this kind of call to this kind of call to this kind of call with a culture that is not okay with you getting counseling, which is not okay with you admitting mistakes, which is not right. So I understand that. But I also know, it's hey, Reese, do you mind if I talk about you? I don't want to say nothing.
Is he a police officer?
Well, so for me, I try to have a bigger picture view. Because it's easy even to blame the police officers that are out here inflicting trauma. Yes, you are responsible for everything that you do. Right. The same way we say with somebody that goes on a high-speed chase or whatever, you shouldn't have done that. But I get it. But all I'm saying is that there are reasons why people continue. Even the Bible says that people continue in their wickedness because their punishment doesn't come swiftly. So imagine what it looks like if there's an officer, and they say power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So imagine if you have police officers that never get it, they just intuitively know that whatever they do to not bring to not make department look good. It seems like the police department is going to suppress
I
what
think
they
that, leads from when you talk about trust and not trusting, especially when your dad went down there, things like that, and saying it. I can understand why he's saying that, because you can't get no justice. You can't hold them accountable from that perspective. And so from that perspective, you can't trust the system, trust them from the perspective that the right thing is going to be done by you, especially if you have a legitimate complaint about something. Because I know I filed numerous complaints, and nothing was ever done about any of those things, right? The same officers that assaulted you, you filed a complaint against, are the same officers that harass you again and again, and then bring it up to your face that you filed a complaint, like I snitched on them, you filed.
One of the things, and so Anthony Reese is a police sergeant. He's a cool brother. I really like him. Man, thanks for watching, man. You probably did. Thanks for watching, bro. Thanks for just conversation. I appreciate that.
That was that brother after that man shooting.
Light skin brother, whatever. He think he got what's called good hair, but he's overrated. You know what I'm saying? He's overrated. My brother Reese, he's a good dude, man. I love that guy. I've known Reese for a long time. We worked in the same district for some years. Every time I've seen him, when we've needed the police, and we do quite a bit, he's always been extremely professional, courteous.
But that's the expectation.
Yeah. So,
but the 1% that ruined it for the other 99. Yeah. But you know what though? That also comes from a culture of people not holding their colleagues accountable. Like, I can't be in a profession where someone who's I work with is corrupt, and I don't, say, hey, I'll go to management and be like, we need to do something about that, because that's not, he is essentially putting me at risk with that, corruption. You just have to, and that's one thing. Like, the military just drills into you, with accountability, responsibility. Think about it. If they will investigate you as tough as the people who actually did the wrongdoing. And if they find you, responsible for any type of mistake that you did, or you didn't follow procedure or anything like that, you're on your way out too. Because they drill procedure into you, they just drill it into you. Accountability. And here's what's going to happen if you don't follow you see what I'm saying? So, and I just wish that, as much as we police, we need that type of, control, not control, but like response in the community. I just wish that there were, better levels of accountability. So when someone does make a mistake, and I get it, people make mistakes all the time, but there is someone to be held accountable.
Well, what I wish is that in general, police officers felt the same way that they expect. In general, officers felt the same way about committing crimes that they want us to feel about committing crimes. So as they say, we do these things to get people to comply. But if an officer doesn't feel the same way, like for me, I know better than to cut up on my job. I'm not doing nothing. I don't try to do nothing that's going to get me in trouble.
Right.
Because my fear is that I remember getting out of the academy, and I didn't even want to hang my helmet up in the fire truck a particular way that they told me not to do. And it wasn't necessarily even getting in trouble. It was just about being ready. There's things that I learned coming out of the academy. And I tell people that work with me now, first thing we got to do is have fun, because we see so much trauma and bad stuff. Let's have fun. So we laugh all day. We laugh hard. That's a priority for us. Second thing is let's train hard, because if we do that, we run a less risk of injuring ourselves or somebody else. And the third thing, and more importantly, is treat people with respect. We don't put our feet on people. I don't care if they're homeless. We don't kick people like, are you all right? We get down and give people the human touch. If it's cold outside and if you got a big old jacket on, put 2 blankets on the person. Like, if it's raining, cover the person up. Show some respect for them. And I'm big on that. And people know that. I go off on somebody for doing stuff like that. We try as much as we can to say, yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, whatever. I don't deal with that type of stuff. Like, we do not. Now, there's times when people are belligerent and stuff like that. So I tell my crew, if anything happens, like, we gonna neutralize the thing. If the police not there, we gonna do what we gotta do to be safe. But man, we'll pack our stuff and get up out of here before we gonna let somebody, do something. Absolutely. Right. So, I guess.
But who went with you on the training rig to crawl through the tight spaces?
I don't remember who was it.
Before you ever went to the.
Who was it? Give a hard time.
Yeah, had me in the training rig.
I said, go to the thing with me, Drew, with the gear on, climbing
His
through.
brother claustrophobic talking about, man, we about to climb through this training rig, blood.
So, and my homegirl,
no business out
you
there.
stupid, and you was big anyway.
Man,
Let's, much love to you too. And he says, oh, he said he got to bounce. Good stuff, man.
Right
Good
on.
to see you. My homegirl Terry said, let's see what Miss Tasha said. Tasha said, I trust some as individuals, but law enforcement department leadership will harm good officers for doing the right thing and promote rogue officers to cover up their wrongs. Yee! I'm not going to love that. I'm going to make a sad one because that is so true and it's sad. And then Tasha says some officers are hurt and mad about today's march. I guess there was something that happened at the March for Black Women today. And I was trying to follow up, but I'm not 100% sure. Maybe we could get a video posted so that we could talk about that.
Something happened to somebody.
There was something happened to a lady. I just remember Layla posted about it. Layla Aziz posted about it. There was some conversation on her page, but I didn't see any video, so I don't know what it was. And then real quick, my homegirl Terry says, I trust them to do what they always done.
Right.
I fear for my son who will inevitably be confronted by a racist police officer.
And that's the sad truth.
She lives in the South, and that's terrible.
that's the sad truth. Where she live, though? Alabama somewhere?
In the Carolinas, North Carolina,
Okay.
I think now. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
So anyway,
But again, everything I think should be subject to scrutiny, right? But as it relates to how you engage and deal with people, I think that, we have to do so in such a manner that is, humane, obviously. And again, like I said, normally when you have run-ins with the police, someone's having the worst day of their life, and I get it, but I just think that, they shouldn't be so quick to ending in lives lost. I mean,
I agree.
there's so many non-lethal ways. I mean, yeah, not everybody's walking around 280 pounds, but at the same time, if that happened to somebody, you personally, you don't want to hear nothing about no justifiable. You got to bury a loved one.
Yeah, right. Period.
For whatever reason, that's still the reality, right? And so I just think, obviously, now I support law enforcement.
Me too.
But what I also support is accountability.
Me too. And accountability, as Tasha always says, accountability is not the enemy. So,
It's not.
Which I think, and I think that's a good segue into.
But I also want to add one
Yeah,
thing.
of course.
I think it's great that, you're here because I said, I don't know how many times, no one ever says F the fire department.
There are some, but they say it for different reasons.
Right. Right. Because, y'all union, y'all want stuff, and y'all want to work less and make more money. Y'all don't deserve it.
You know what? I hope
Y'all should get off the Kelly schedule and work
That's
9
not
to
in the
5.
contract, right?
he's a hater. No, they're in negotiations.
No,
Yeah, it's
take them down.
we've got to. I think, in my view, I think we have to work on educating the public about what we do, educate them about the facts, about what we do, what our job actually entails. So many people don't know what the fire department does, and I think because of that, there's a lack of appreciation, and the police department is in the face of people all the time. In that, when you look at especially now with such negative publicity, even negative publicity is publicity. So. And then people are afraid, so it's like, let's add more officers. But people don't realize the amount of growth that the fire department needs. We need more stations. We need more firefighters. I mean, our city is understaffed when it comes to the fire department, 100%. And we need to do something about that. And so I just thank God for my local 145, my union, for standing in the gap. And doing their best to try and have these conversations at a level that can make some change. And so I'm just trying the best that I can from a community relations standpoint. That's why people always see me in the community a lot. I believe in wearing my uniform and being out there because I want people to know that this to me is a community service. I'm not just a recruiter, but it's a community service.
Yeah.
I think it's important that people see their.
But who was with you when you graduated? Who came to watch your graduation ceremony?
You did. Who else helped me move into my house?
Just me.
See, it was me and Drew.
Man.
My homegirl, Dree McCall, says, what's up, Dree? training and respect, facts. And that respect needs to supersede everything they do. That is what is lacking the most. I agree.
But you know what though?
What's up, Anna? Aisha?
I'll take the training over respect if I had to choose. Period. Someone don't have to be like, you ain't got to be polite to the people you deal with. But if your training is up to par, that's it. It's like having.
But there's no separation though. There's not a part of your training is respect.
There's a huge separation. If you look at the law enforcement culture, there's a huge separation between what they're trained to do or what they're taught and how they engage their constituents or how they engage the public or citizens. Because if the respect was there, you wouldn't see so many instances of police brutality and of use of force.
Right.
You wouldn't see it. But if someone told me, it's one or the other, you can't have both, great. Well, let's build some good training into them.
Yeah.
What would the training entail? Because,
Right.
I mean, if you're
Engagement, community engagement. You know,
but what is that?
how to de-escalate situations.
How do you do that if you don't respect somebody?
Yeah.
How do you do that if there's a huge language barrier?
Well,
If there has to be further communication.
De-escalation training should be the number one thing that they should be
Of
drilling
course,
police
of
officers.
course.
Because things just escalate out of control real
But
fast.
needing to de-escalate presupposes the fact that you care enough about a person to not have them be killed at the end of this interaction.
But the argument will be and is, well, you can't have both. Great. Well, let's make sure that the training
You can't
is
have
such.
both. You can't have both. And one of the things that needs to happen is that there needs to be some cultural diversity training. So that, like, one of the things that happened to me on a call one time, I walked into the home, a Muslim home, and we helped the family out. And afterwards, I went to shake the hand of the wife or mother of the patient. I don't remember if it was a little kid or not, but it was a relative. So I think it was somebody close like that, like the wife or the mother of the patient that we took. And I went to shake her hand and she didn't shake my hand. And the training that I went to, taught by CHP years ago, it was a specialized training. It dawned on me, it culturally, Muslim women, depending on I don't want to say the type of Islam because that might sound stupid, but depending on how they see it, yes,
The individual.
they're not going to shake hands. And so when you go into people's homes that are diverse cultures, you have to understand it, because somebody can see that as disrespect. Oh, you're not going to shake my hand? Well, I don't shake any man's hand. Like culturally, like I just can't, just like you can't take off my hijab. And so one of the things that we have to do, depending on how we feel as Americans, like if you have people who believe a particular thing, you can't, like if they want to be, if you need to have enough awareness to send a female officer to the house to take this woman into another room with her husband. If you want to look at her face or whatever, men can't do that because in their religion, whether you agree with it or not.
And that's called respect.
Period. And we need to remember that those are the types of things that if we don't get off of, if we're not so haughty and so arrogant as Americans to think that it has to be our way or the highway,
Right.
then I think we factor those things in. And with that comes respect. That's why I don't think part of the training is respect and how to deal with people and cultural diversity and understanding the things that you're mad about are things that are cultural to me. Like if you look at other people that aren't born and raised in America, a lot of times they stand too close. How often have you been in a store somewhere and somebody's up on you like this and you look at them and go, okay, there's a good chance that they're probably a first generation American or they just immigrated here, because if you were born in America, you know that this is about the distance that we need to be while we're talking. Because if I'm like this, now we've been cultured to recognize that as a threat. Or if I reach out my hand to shake it or whatever, like it's cultural for us to shake a person's hand or fist bump. So like if we understand those things, I think we don't recognize certain things as disrespect. You know what I mean?
So some type of sensitivity training and awareness.
Cultural awareness. I think a lot of it, you know what I mean? So
I agree with that.
yeah. Well, I think this is a good segue into, let's talk about Bloomberg. And that was a huge I guess probably 3 weeks ago, I think is kind of when, about January 5th, I think is when he came to San Diego. That was like, I knew he was running for president, but I didn't never really think about it. And then that day he was like, hey, it was a Sunday, January 5th. He was like, hey, I'm going to this meeting at Wendy's house to talk to Bloomberg. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. Like, I didn't really think too much about it. I had just heard all the things about him that I was like, wow, so for him to be here was kind of weird. So you went. And then that was kind of the last that we really talked about it, right? And we talked about that night, because I think that night we had the show, and we talked about it. Then the next thing I know, he was like, Bloomberg online.
Almost a month later.
Okay, but
a month later.
So I don't even think, but I'm saying we didn't really talk about it though. Like, it was just that one night, and then the next thing you know, like you were fully supporting Bloomberg, and it just became this national. It was an international issue, and that's why I think it's good, man. For us to be able to talk about the stuff, because like there were some major issues, and a lot of them I understand. Probably most of the issues I understand, And so let's just segue into that. Like, for one, like what was the impetus? What started you to even want to follow him? And then, and I guess, or before you answered, however, was there an internal thing that you had to reconcile in order to come out like that, knowing that there probably was going to be issues, or did you know? So I guess that would be like kind of how I wanted to engage in that.
Yeah, absolutely. The day that I talked to you, I already knew about Fritz and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I read and I looked at things of what he said about it in regards to responding. And of course, people, oh, well, he's running for office now, that's why he's apologizing like that. But so when I went to see him, I didn't ask him about that because I already heard his response to that. I wouldn't waste my question on that. But my question to him was about police brutality. That was my concern. I think we did talk about that. I remember us talking about that after I saw him on the show.
Yeah.
But his response was sufficient for me, but I was unsure about his response in the sense of if it was true what he told me based on New York, what's going on in New York, and what he was saying nationally, because he did acknowledge it, that a lot of Black men are being killed nationally, and that something needs to be done about it. And then he used New York as an example, like we brought it down low in New York. So my thing was to go do the research right after that to see, and then come to find out, yes, it was true. But, there was a side note to that the trend was already going down as far as police brutality. So that was at least on the police brutality. But my thing is that the reason why he was there, many things with the work that we do with gun violence prevention. And so my thing on a personal level, I should say, or on a spiritual level, I should say, is I try to engage in things that God has called me to, right? He called me to this ministry of being a pastor, and my work, a part of my ministry, not all of my ministry, but a part of my ministry is dealing with violence prevention, which a lot of that is gun violence prevention and so on. And that's one of his expertise. That's one of the expertise. That's one of his passions, and where he's thrown a lot of some of the groups that I work with. So that was like a plus for me. Like, okay, this is the work that I do, and this is the work that he does, and that he's doing a lot of things.
Who?
And Bloomberg.
Stop and Frisk Bloomberg?
No, not Stop and Frisk.
Not
Stop and Frisk. This is Stop and Frisk was
Anytime USA.
when he was mayor. He's not mayor now, and the courts overruled that. But when you talk about the gun violence prevention work that he does, and see, this is one of the things that people. One of the things I found is that people were framing narratives that came from the Bernie camp. Just make it plain and clear, because I've seen it. It came from the Bernie camp. Because it wasn't people, everybody. Maybe it was some folks, but most people that were doing it was, in the Bernie camp and trying to frame it. There were some people that was really, hey, I ain't for nobody, and I don't like him either. And I saw that especially with ADOS, and I respected that because they stayed consistent at what they were doing, and there was no hidden agenda. They had their agenda and so on. But for most people, it was a narrative that they were trying to frame because they were trying to push another racist. They call him Bloomberg a racist, but I'm like, who's not? Bernie's a racist too. So it's about the policies. It's about what they're talking about doing and moving forward. That's what I'm looking at. So the people that was talking about the stop and frisk and making that a big issue. I mean, on their personal level, personal issue, you have a right to do that.
Right.
But my thing is that like with the end of stop, where are you right here in San Diego? You're talking about what's going on in New York. Where are you in San Diego in ending, this racial profiling that is happening where people are being stopped and searched, where Black people overwhelmingly being stopped and searched, and of course brown too, because Latinos, they are stopped less, but then when they stop, their cars are searched more. And so that's going on right now. We still have that problem based on AB 953, based on the Campaign Zero report that came out last part, and the things that we're fighting right now that I'm in the midst of fighting right here in San Diego. I see who's on the front lines to change and do that versus those that are not, right? But we're concerned about the stop and frisk that happened a few years ago, and I'm concerned about too. I used that and talked about that. But if we're talking about moving forward, my perspective is number one, I'm not here to judge anybody, right? From the perspective that if you tell me, forgive me, I'm sorry about that, whatever it is, I was wrong in what I did with that. Who am I to say that I can't forgive you, right? Unless you haven't demonstrated that you have truly turned from that, right? And that you're trying to make it better, do it right, and so on. So I wasn't stuck on that like a lot of people were. I wasn't stuck on that. But also, one of the things that we've always been pushing is reparations and the Black agenda, right? No candidate is pushing reparations that's in the top tiers there, but he did have a Black agenda. Clearly he had a Black agenda. When you look at the Greenwood Initiative, when you look at other things as far as like push Black entrepreneurship, the push for home ownership, and then also having a policy on addressing police brutality or what's happening to Blacks. And then you look at the things that were happening in New York as far as even under his mayorship, he did a lot of positive things. I've met people, talked to people with the work that I do on the boots on the ground at the grassroots level. And so they say, yeah, we have a problem with his stop and frisk thing, but he did a lot of positive things in supporting the work that we've been doing on the ground. So you look at all that and you weigh it, right? And so with me coming close to the primaries, I had to decide whether I was going to jump in it or not jump in it, right? If I stay out of it, I just stay out of it. But I really I prayed on it. And for me, it was what was at my best interest in the ministry that I have, and that's what I chose. But I will say that, just a caution to the Bernie supporters is that they need to be careful how they attack people and how they make things personal. If you want to support your candidate, then support your candidate. And if you want to attack the other candidate, we talk, I say, hey, whatever you say about Bloomberg, I don't care to do that. But don't start attacking me on a personal level. If you want to be my friend, don't start attacking me on a personal level. And a lot of folks did that online, right? Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. I really saw people's true faces of who they really are when it comes to. You can disagree with me all day long. We can do that. We can argue, debate, and all that. But when you start making attacks, and especially when people try to say, "Oh, you must be getting paid," or try to insinuate that you're getting some kind of money to do this, when a lot of these folks, everything they do in the community on the grassroots level, they're doing it because they got funding for it. You know what I mean? Most of the stuff they're doing is they're doing it because they got funding for it. And, people like me and people like Tasha Williamson, we do a lot of stuff and don't get paid for it. We do a little mentoring over here, get a little funding for that, but we don't talk about that. Stuff you see us in the community doing and pushing and fighting, not getting $1, at least on my end. I know a lot of stuff that she's doing, she's not good, but I do with other groups too, so I don't know what she's getting over there. I don't know all her business, but I do know that the work that we do in gun violence prevention, the work that we do in addressing the police brutality and things like that, we don't get one penny for that. And we show up and we're there and we put our heart and passion into this, right? Because I do it because of God, right? That's why anything I do is motivated by God and not by self glory or money or anything like that. It's because this is what I believe God wants me to do, right? But a lot of folks out there, they ain't doing it because of that. They doing it because they getting paid to do it. Once the money gone, they're gone. They on to something else, on to another issue, a legislation agenda, or whatever, and then have the nerve to say, try to insinuate that I'm getting paid for it. So that really bothered me. I had an issue with people that should know me and didn't want to do that to discredit me because I'm saying, well, you don't like down supporting Bloomberg, too bad.
Well, so think about and definitely, I appreciate you saying that. I definitely get what you're saying. So let me just go back for a few things and to look at it from a regular community member's eyes in the face of you supporting Bloomberg. So, and me personally, the one thing that I thought about, and I told you about this on Wednesday, when was that, when we were at the thing at Baby Wednesday?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wednesday, the thing that we talked about was, so number one, I'm questioning, we say that he was sorry, but I'm like, man, like to me, I was thinking, when did we start accepting apologies right before you start? Like he came out before he started running for president and went to a black church and said, hey, y'all, I'm sorry. And I'm thinking, shut up, man. You ain't sorry, dude. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so that's why I was like, man, I don't agree. I don't think he was really sorry. I don't think he was really sorry.
Clearly, I think that like if that's all you saw, then absolutely. You know what I mean?
That's one
piece.
Yes.
If that's one of the first pieces or a piece that overwhelmed everything else, I completely understand.
Well, up until November of 2019, he was with it.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you know what I'm saying? Right. All of a sudden he wants to run.
And I'm fine with that.
So
I'm fine with that as far as people having an issue with that. But my thing is, it's like, I'm not looking at where you came from per se, unless you're still going there. Right, I'm looking at where you're taking us.
Well,
so that's my issue. I'm looking, and so people need to understand from the perspective of the regular person's eyes, and oh, now you're sorry. I'm looking at where you're going, not where you came from. But right? What is from your policies and agenda, or moving forward versus everyone else's, and especially what's I'm out here for. Right. Are you addressing those issues? That's what's important.
So here's one of the things that I want to. So I looked up some statistics from the stop and frisk statistics, and I posted this on March 3rd. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I said was entry-level field organizing work for Bloomberg is $72,000 a year. So he's extremely rich, worth $56 billion or whatever. Mm-hmm. He spent $220 million in the first 5 weeks of his candidacy. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, and so from that, I'm thinking he had enough money to come in to, and of course he's gonna push a black agenda because no one else is, because he wants to take the black votes away from Bernie so that Trump has a better chance to win, because him and Trump are homeboys. Mm-hmm. He came in knowing he didn't have a chance.
Let me tell you something, man. If people can hate on me, they can do whatever they want, but Bernie, I would never vote for him.
That's fine.
I would never support him, and I'll stand out. I'll stand out as far as voting for president. I'll vote down the ballot if he's on there and stuff. And let me just say, if my hand was forced, you gotta vote for. I'll vote for Trump if I vote for him. That's the way I feel about him. And
but why?
Because number one, his supporters are just like Trump. Trumpism, they just like them, and
but I support Bernie Sanders.
Democratic socialism, right? Mm-hmm. The way I look at it, people, especially you got a lot of younger people that's pushing that socialist agenda and try to make it seem like it's non-racist, it's because you got people like Cornel West and others that are supporting and so on. But let me tell you something, man, whether it's capitalism or whether it's democratic socialism, all of it come from men of corrupt minds, right? And, the Bible said, let no one take you captive through hollow and deceptive philosophy that depends on human traditions and the elemental forces of this world rather than on Christ, right? So I don't, whether it's democratic socialism or whether it's capitalism, I care less. I'm looking at where you're trying to take us to, right? That's what I'm looking at. And for me, a lot has to do with respect, because, if think about socialism and think about back in the 1700s, especially 1800s after Karl Marx, but 1800s then going into the 1900s or so, most of those movements, even though they try to deal with classism, it had to do with race, it had to do with class, and it had to do with annihilating people, right? If you don't get in line with us. And that's the way I see this with the Bernie thing too. You get in line with us, or we're gonna crush you. You know, you're out of here, and that's the wrong kind of attitude. I don't want. Look what happened in Venezuela with Democrat, with this socialist idea, and so on. And every time you have a person that's heading, leading that, and talking, oh, you know, we're going to do everything for everybody, end up becoming a dictator, whether it's Stalin, whether it's Hitler, whether it's Castro, or whoever. You know what I mean? So my thing is, it's like I don't trust that.
Yeah, but I think that's unfair. I think that's unfair to equate what Bernie Sanders is talking about.
No, listen to Bernie Sanders
in Argentina.
It's the same thing. Bernie Sanders. Let me tell you something. I had a conversation with Bloomberg. I heard from his mouth and my own ears what he said about police brutality. Right.
Mm-hmm. But you heard it.
But no, there's other people standing around.
Did he say it on TV?
Well,
so
I don't know if he said what he said to me on TV, but he did address it. But let me just tell you this, is that Bernie said something on TV that nobody's talking about, right? Bernie came on TV. They asked him about police brutality, people being killed. And guess what he said? Black people need to be nice and respectful for police so they don't get shot. So that tells you where his mindset is. And he said something years ago when he was in Congress about segregation, about the communities, and he's not even for that, and so on. So when you talk about people changing their minds and doing things and so on, everybody has an agenda to do things. But or I should say change their mind about things. But what are you talking about doing now when you talk about moving forward and so on, right? And then the other thing is like, and this is for me personally on another issue, is he's anti-Christian.
Who, Bernie?
Yeah.
So is Bloomberg.
Yeah, but
so is Bloomberg. Bloomberg is anti-Christ.
Well,
yes, he is. Otherwise, he wouldn't have came in and bought.
I don't know about that. But if he is, I didn't know about that. But the other thing is,
his behavior shows you that.
No.
His apology.
But I'm not here to defend that, right? I'm not here to defend that. But what I'm here to defend or here to talk about is my choice.
I forgot what you call it when you're Jewish that don't really practice that. I don't know how much Bernie practices his Judaism, but Bernie's Jewish, and so for him to feel a particular way. There's tons of
it's his politics. What he's trying to push in his politics that is anti-Christian. But you know, I mean, a lot of because that's the problem That's the problem that I have with a lot of Democrats, especially the liberals and so on, is that they are anti-Christian. They can do it. They want to do away with it if they can. You know, they follow just like Bill Maher and all of them. Yeah, and I know you're going to way out there.
No. I think it's extremely disingenuous though to use that as a standard of how we're going to judge somebody.
No, it's a part of it. It's not the whole ruler.
That's what I mean. One of the standards. Like if you look at it, like Bernie Sanders might say, I don't go to church and I'm not for Christians. He might say that, right?
Like that.
But then Bloomberg comes in and shows you, he may not say it, but he shows you that he doesn't follow Jesus and he ain't with Christians. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I think it's unfair.
But you're coming with something that hasn't proven that. But with Bernie, it's been proven.
No. So let's look at stop and frisk. And
I'm talking about. We talking about anti-Christian. And so if you
stop and frisk is anti-Christian.
No.
That's anti-Christ.
I'm talking about directly. I'm not talking about this indirect stuff because all of them got some type of anti-Christian stuff, both on the Republican and the Democratic side. All of them got anti-Christian stuff.
Bernie Sanders is
more. If you want to look at lifestyle and holiness,
Bernie Sanders is more Christian than Mike Bloomberg.
No. When you talk about specifically with attacking Christians for being Christians. That's what I'm talking about. So if you got something on Bloomberg on that, then show me that, and that's fine. I mean, he ain't in the race no more, so it don't make any difference.
My thing is, why would I have to show you?
Because I'm telling you something that's specific with Bernie Sanders, right, and that's why you said it was unfair. And I'm saying specifically what he has said and what he has done as a politician, as a senator against Christians.
But Bloomberg has not told me that he hates Jesus, but he has shown me that he does. What's the difference?
Sanders does the same thing.
It doesn't matter. So to me, it's like we have never. I don't know because we don't know anybody's heart, right? And there are some things that people could have looked at the fact that we didn't talk for the time, or that they could look at all kinds of things. When I've been mad, I done said a cuss word. So there are things. No, seriously. And I got problems, Bishop. Don't judge me. I got issues, man.
Lord
I'm
bless
saying,
you,
hey,
man.
Lord Jesus. But I'm like, no, but so I'm like, dude, there have been many times where people would look at my life and based on my
All of us,
actions,
all of
wouldn't,
us,
you know what I
all
mean?
of us.
But all I'm saying is I just feel like I feel like we have to, these are the times that are, I think the community needs for us as those who stand in the religious space to be
Against what you believe?
transparent. No, to be transparent enough to say that these things could be perceived a particular way.
This is not just a perception with Bernie, it's what he said and what he
But
done.
what about what Bloomberg did? He may not
But I'm
have
talking
said.
about
I got some
directly.
questions. I got
Yes.
some questions. Brisa Lawrence says,
What's up, Bree?
What is anti-Christian about his policies?
To me personally, I don't think there's anything anti-Christian about Bernie Sanders' policies. I mean, generally speaking, I don't know where his heart is towards it. I don't know anybody's heart, but when I look at him saying, hey, these rich people just keep getting richer and the poor keep getting poorer. And he's like, man, we got some of the highest education costs. When my daughter gets out of college, her debt, I'm trying to pay it and keep it up right now. So thank God. But I pay over $18,000 a year for my daughter. Do you know what that?
Did you use stones?
No, I almost started crying on us. That's what I tried to do. If you have, do you know what that looks like? How tight that makes our budget? How tight that, I am thankful that my wife don't mind making a pot of vegetable soup and we eat it for 3 days. People think I'm balling. I ain't balling. And we got this, it's not even a nonprofit. That's a lot of the expenses I have to pay myself and people want stuff and do whatever. So, I mean, and I'm a generous person. So I either got to work extra hours. I got another job so we don't have to pay for my daughter to fly here. So I work part-time for the airlines. So, dude, if you looked at my checks and looked at our expenses, I don't have no money. I thank God every single month that he provides for my family. And I'm not afraid to work hard. But my point is that I pay a lot for my daughter to go to college. Meanwhile, Bernie is saying, why don't we have education be a lot cheaper? Public education should be free for our people. And people say, well, how are we going to pay for that? The same way you pay for the $63 trillion worth of war. You know how much it costs to kill Soleimani and all that?
You'll be paying way more taxes. But let me just say this.
63 trillion?
Let me just
Let me
say
ask you a
this.
question. How is it that public education can be free from kindergarten to 12th grade?
But not college.
Taxes.
And not college?
Not college.
Taxes, because you have a lot of the colleges are not public, the private colleges. Public school.
Every state school is public though.
Huh?
Every state school is public.
What you think about that?
Every state school.
That's public school.
Public
Yeah,
school.
well, I know you do have some public school where, like, 'cause I used to work for UCSD, and they also get public funding. But what I'm talking about,
A UC school is private.
no, they get public. No,
Sure, they get public funding.
and they are part of the public sector.
Okay.
Yeah, but one of the things that I wanted to say though, when you talk about that and in these various things they talk about doing with socialism and so I don't. Hey, look, do what you got to do when it comes to college and all those kind of things. But where is this black agenda at? And when you talk about, we've seen this throughout history, and you know the stuff that we've read,
Sure.
and so on.
Oh, I'm with you on the black agenda.
Is that even if you talking about you're going to raise everybody, black people still on the bottom, and if you're going to bring equity, what you going to do to equalize things with black people? And Bernie has not presented anything on that.
But
He's talking about, even when they ask about reparations, he's like, oh, well, we're going to list everybody up. When we do it for everybody, then, blacks will come up too. Yeah, still on the bottom. Everybody's still stepping up.
Bloomberg came out and his entire push was for the black vote. And the reason why he did that was to split the vote. He never, I bet you, if I wish I could read somebody's
Who said that?
No, I'm just looking at how he came in and what he did. I think it makes sense that he came into the race not to win.
But we don't know that.
I'm just saying he came in late. Absolutely.
We don't know that.
No, I'm just saying.
You can spend
we don't know.
$500 billion
Yes.
as a diversion.
Yes.
To my understanding, what I was told.
You know why? Because guess
You
what?
got the money.
No, not at all. Listen, look at what happens.
Because then Trump-
We need a good candidate.
And I don't see that. I think that's a narrative.
Hold on. Let me just say this and see if it makes sense. And I wish that my strategist homegirl Brisa was here to talk about this, and she's going to come on in the next couple of weeks so that we could just kind of look at how strategies and stuff work. But here's what I think happened.
Bernie Sanders supporter, right?
Well, that's because that's all we got right now. She wishes she probably could vote for somebody black. I don't know. But when you look at who's best for us,
Yeah, he's not best for us.
But he's better than Bloomberg. So, you know what I mean?
Bloomberg's not in it. It's Biden. It's him and Biden.
Bloomberg's not in it, but he never thought he was going to go the distance.
But Bloomberg, no. Bloomberg, to my understanding, I'm just telling you based on my rationale, to my understanding is that he got it because he thought that Biden did fall off the radar. And they were looking for a moderate or someone who was in the middle. And because Bernie's way over there, Trump way over there, that's why he got into it.
I think he
Biden ended up,
the reason why I don't agree.
And I'm not supporting him either.
Yeah, the reason why I don't agree with that, the reason why I feel the way I feel about Bloomberg is, number one, was the way he came in. He came in, he didn't care nothing about his stop and frisk. Let's look real quick at in 2019, in the first half of 2019, stop and frisk, 7,101 stops were recorded. 4,900 were innocent. 4,200 were black. 680 was white.
How many in San Diego?
I don't know what it was.
See, we know more about New York because we were at the Bloomberg, but we don't even pay attention to what's going on in our front yard or what's going on here.
Nobody said facts matter, not just opinion.
Nobody in San Diego.
Thank you. I agree with that 100%.
Nobody in San Diego is running for president, and Bloomberg is the issue. That's why. So
Bloomberg's not running anymore.
Well, he was, and he ran for. There was 11,000 in 2018. Out of them, 6,000 of them were black. 1,000 was white. So these are things that he pushed, policies that he pushed. And by the way, 80% of them were innocent, 88%. And all of these ones, 70 to 80% of people were innocent. He pushed and pushed a racist policy that disenfranchised people. And guess what happens when you arrest people? And you look at what's happening in San Diego, overwhelmingly when San Diegans are pulled over, they get charged with the misdemeanor that's resisting arrest that goes on your record that then says when the police pull you and type your name in, they see that charge that you're resisting arrest.
So show me one policy Bernie Sanders as a senator pushed to end that.
To end what? To
end this stop and frisk stuff, whether it's in New York or wherever, or to end police brutality. Show me any bill that he has pushed to address that, to address racism, specifically dealing with black people, did
Bloomberg have one?
Huh? But he had one. Yes, he had one.
No, did he have one?
And he did a lot.
Bernie Sanders has one too. Bernie Sanders has policies that affect black people.
I'm talking about specifically.
But see what I'm saying though. That's what I'm saying. I think it's crazy. Here's why. Because I think Bloomberg is a liar and he's a manipulator. And so he came into the race. Hey, black people, I'm sorry. His entire candidacy.
But you have a right to that. I mean, you have a right to that. But
listen, you know what I say about that?
Hold on, real quick, because I'm going to say this. But I think he came in. Bloomberg came in. He focused his entire campaign on black people because he knew that that's what black people wanted to hear. So that
if you were following, you'll know that his whole focus was not on black people. He had an agenda on black people, but he also was addressing climate change. He was addressing every political issue that's out there.
His push was a black agenda and all that. And I'm saying part of what he did was come into the communities and he did purchase. There were pastors and not you, but there were pastors.
And so what? So what? So what?
See, we can't see. That's what I'm saying.
But don't anybody work on the campaign get paid?
Who in Bernie Sanders' staff was making $72,000 as an entry-level organizer?
No.
Who on Bernie Sanders? Who else's campaign had?
I don't know nobody down here with Bloomberg.
Who else had $500 million to spend in 2 months running the campaign?
And that's the other thing, right?
Bloomberg is a chief liar.
His staff
and offices and everything for everybody. But here's the thing. Bernie hated millionaires till he became a millionaire. Now he got a problem with billionaires and so on. And so once he become a billionaire, he's going to have a problem with billionaires.
He became a millionaire, right?
From his book.
He wrote a book.
He wrote a book.
So he believed in capitalism. He believed in getting out there and making money and doing your thing.
Earning money from something that you created.
Yeah. That's what it's all about.
That's different from inheriting your money
Absolutely.
or any other like.
Bloomberg didn't inherit his money though.
Right. Bloomberg started the company and grew it and grew it. But you can't penalize someone.
Oh, I'm not here to penalize, but that's what Bernie's trying to do, penalize people.
Breesa said the question for Bishop is
because he said
what is anti-Christian about Bernie Sanders' policies?
Right.
That's what she wants to know.
His practices is anti-Christian because he attacked Christians for being Christians. When if you and I, now I don't know if you shifted what you believe about being a Christian, but we believe that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. We believe that no man can get to God unless they come through him. And now as Christian, you're going to say that, you're going to believe that,
and I'm going to get to y'all statements and questions. Bear with us.
Right? And so whatever job I'm going for, you shouldn't be questioning me about my Christianity and what I said about my beliefs to hold that against me. And that's what he did. And that's why I say it's anti-Christian. And it's on record.
So he did what? So he wouldn't let Christians work on his campaign?
No, there was somebody that they was trying to get through. And as a senator.
Wait. Hold on. But Bernie's policies, he wants to uplift the downtrodden, everybody.
He's not uplifting black people from the perspective of bringing equity. If black people do rise, they're still going to be on the bottom. But he has no policy specifically to address black people or the black agenda. And even when you call him on an action on that, he avoids that.
What do you think the black agenda is?
It's about equity. It's about closing the racial wealth gap. And that's he's not for that.
Who's responsible for that, though, you think?
What you mean?
Closing the racial wealth gap. You gonna leave that up to a politician?
I think it's a part of policies. Yes, I do. Because when you go back, well, it might be foolish, but I think that's something we should be pushing for. Because when you look at, when you look at slavery, when you look at Jim Crow, when you look at all the discrimination and racism and oppression that black people have faced in this country and built this country,
right?
And when you talk about generational wealth,
right,
and so on,
right,
on the white side and versus on the side, and looking at the racial wealth gap, how years and years back, people just constantly trail behind. Even when they supposed to pass policies to benefit black people, still fall behind. You got to address that. So that's an inequity. That's unchristian.
Okay, so how do you address that?
Through policy, through changing the policy, and through specifically.
What? Okay,
so
what would that look like?
And
you can't say affirmative action. What would that look like?
No, affirmative action didn't really work.
What would that look like?
It goes back to some of the things that we're talking about. Number one, I do believe in reparations, and I believe in a.
And you think that'll close the racial wealth gap?
I believe that if you do it right, it most definitely will.
But how do you do it right?
With reparations, with
How do you do it?
But wait a minute.
Let me hear it.
With reparations, but also with businesses, specifically focus. When you talk about, he was talking about his daughter going to college, right? There should be a specific policy for black people that want to go to college, whether they have, because they are descendants of slavery, they get that free education. They get that free college. And so, look, you asked me, let me explain, let me tell you. And with businesses, the same thing. Black businesses with the same thing. The black colleges, they should be supporting the black colleges also. Home ownership, the same thing. And so when you talk about closing the racial wealth gap, you got to start somewhere. And right now, what is happening is year after year, time after time, politician after politician, election after election, even with under Obama, black people are left behind, right? Because there's no specific policy to address the generational wealth that has created this racial wealth gap. And so you have to start somewhere to begin to even address that, to start raising up black people.
I just think, and again, and I understand wholeheartedly the need for a black agenda. I understand the necessity, the desire for it. I can't help but go back to the beginning and say, the way that Bloomberg came into this race was dishonest at best. His intentions were wrong. He knew he wasn't gonna make it. Wasn't nobody gonna. So what he did was he came in and he pumped a whole lot of money into something.
Those are all opinions and not facts.
Well, but I'm just saying that.
Anybody can throw opinions out there for whatever way they want to go.
How I feel about it.
But all I'm saying, wait, hold on. All I'm saying, go ahead. About the
whole Bloomberg thing. It's like you can't buy your way into the hearts and minds of Black Americans.
But obviously he can, because a lot of black people let him purchase them into apology. You look at some of our loved leaders that we have, whose family members, we got people that we love in our community right now that left San Diego to go work on Bloomberg's campaign, and now they don't have jobs. We got people that we love, political leaders whose children work for Bloomberg's campaign.
Well, we all understand. I didn't do it, but folks understand the risk of working on campaign. It can end any time.
All I'm saying is that all of a sudden, a man comes out of nowhere to run for president and says, I can beat Donald Trump, and is not true, and did not address, to me, adequately the fact that he was sorry. The way that he came out was not godly. He didn't come out and go, thank you, Lord Jesus, for everything. He's not a Christian either. By profession, confession, by the way, none of that. So I just think he's disingenuous. And Brisa said that Bernie's senior advisor is Christian and black.
But listen.
So did Bloomberg have people on his staff that was Christian?
Brisa said, I don't care if folks don't support Bernie, but make it make sense. The reasons he doesn't like are false. If his opinion is what it is, he would be a Bernie supporter. And I'm starting to think Bishop doesn't like him just because he's Jewish, but he can't say that out loud. Brisa just wrote that.
Who put that?
Brisa said that.
But Bloomberg is Jewish too.
Yeah. That show you ignorant people.
No, well,
show you how ignorant people are.
Well, but I think at the same time.
No, that's ignorant, man.
Well, I know, but I think
call it like it is.
But I think the same could be said about someone believing this man who comes in and offers this fake apology.
That's not here or there.
It is,
but when people,
no.
When people come in, and this is what I'm talking about, stuff like this, and this is stuff that's been going on with people, right? When they try to make personal attacks, don't know me and say I got a problem with Jews.
No, of course, no.
You know what I mean? Don't know me, and Jesus was a Jew. No, but people, Paul was a Jew. You know what I mean? The Bible that written mostly by Jewish people.
But again, I think when we knew,
so people got to reach for something.
But check this out, though.
They got to reach for something.
But I think it's
instead of just keeping it real and being real about it. You're a Bernie supporter. Just be a Bernie supporter. Push his agenda.
But I think people
don't make no attack.
But I think people expect the same things, the same criticism that we give other people that are looking and examine our lives, and we go, well, how come you didn't examine? Like I would ask you, like, why you didn't examine Bloomberg the way that you examined?
I did.
I see how you can say that, man, and it only be about.
And let me just tell you.
You've been saying that, so I understand, but I'm like, man.
Let me just say this, bro. Let me just say this. Okay, but that's fine if people believe that.
He's not, Bishop.
He's not running either. But let me just say this also. In this process,
because Sanders socked him in his mouth.
In this process, man. In this process,
Sanders beat up your candidate.
Whatever. In this process, from January 5th to the time I came forward, I analyzed and looked at everything. Now I can't say everything, but did my best, right? And through prayer, right? Praying to a Jewish man, Jesus Christ. Not only that, but I get since the last election, I get stuff from Our Revolution. I get stuff from Bernie Sanders in emails and so on, right? I get stuff from Sean King all the time, right? And he's a big supporter surrogate for Bernie Sanders. I reached out to him before I came up with some questions about issues. No, he didn't respond.
Of course not.
Well, I don't have a platform for him to respond. But I'm just telling you
you're a citizen, aren't you?
The due diligence, the due diligence that I did in reaching out, right?
Right.
And so on. And so, for people to think that it was just a rash thing that I've done or what have you, no. But of course, I know mines are.
But
and like I say, most of this stuff comes from, not all of it, but most of it comes from the Bernie Sanders camp.
For me, I'm not in Bernie Sanders camp, but I think
you voted for him.
Of course. Yeah, but there's a difference.
It wasn't people you run with.
But to me, Bernie's
policies.
Who
would you choose?
He said he would choose Trump.
I wouldn't choose him.
And I don't know how the hell you could choose Trump.
I said I would vote. But my hand was forced.
Yeah, but listen, you did say that. But listen, real quick.
How could you?
So, but listen,
I couldn't vote for the same guy that the Klan supported.
We need to quit. Let's stick with let's stick
I'm sure
in the
there's some
lane.
plans to support
We are,
Bernie too.
listen, we are all over the place in this conversation. Let's stick to one. Let's try to narrow it down to like a few things, because we're gonna like now we like who's with the KKK and all that, and all of them support the KKK. They all do. They're all supported by the KKK. Every one of them is. There's not a candidate that has run for president ever, with the exception that wasn't supported and endorsed by the KKK in some way. But my thing is that Bernie Sanders does not have, Bernie Sanders, if you look at Bernie Sanders' platform, his policies more accurately reflect what looks like what Jesus would do about helping the poor, bringing equity, making sure people are eating, making sure that our kids can be educated and know what's going on, to level the playing field. His thing was.
So has he done that in his own personal life?
I don't know. I don't know if he did or not. I don't know. None of us know any. Only thing we can go off is and that's what I'm saying.
You're right.
Only thing we can go off of is what's on their
Information
platform.
we have on hand.
Because none of us.
I think that like if we're attacking people personally, like Bloomberg, then we got to look at him too and see what has he done outside of just in politics and so on with his money and so on. If he's so much for all of this, what is he doing with his cash?
What is Bernie doing with his cash?
Yeah.
I don't know what Bernie's doing with his cash. I don't know, but I know what Bloomberg was doing. He was purchasing votes from Negroes. I know that. No, seriously, he was. That's what we know. That's what he was doing. He was buying black people, and we was like, "I'll take it." He was buying votes.
That's the textbook example of someone else.
I don't understand. I just have a hard time understanding how somebody could look at somebody who's saying, "Look, the rich need to pay their fair share. We're worried about how we can pay for education, health care for all, stuff that's happening."
All I want to know in all of that, I hear you and I understand that. All I want to know in that is how is that going to uplift black people and equalize things?
So let me ask you this, Bishop. Did you get paid by the campaign?
No.
That's a no.
Yeah, absolutely no. Wasn't even connected with nobody in the campaign until after he hired people here and opened up a headquarters. And that's where I met some of the people and volunteers and some that was on staff.
Well, hey, Brisa, I want to call you. Pick up your phone. So here, because you know some of these things about Bernie and I don't. That's why I need you here. That's why we need to have this conversation.
No, man. I mean, I get a chance to have people for Bloomberg and all that.
You can call them up.
No, this is our conversation.
No, she knows stuff about Bloomberg.
Who cares?
It's important.
Who cares? This is our conversation. This is our conversation.
So what we call
this is our conversation, because I can't respect people who don't respect me, and I'm gonna be serious about that. I can't respect people that don't respect me, and what she said was disrespectful.
No, what she said,
it was just an opinion.
But it was disrespectful towards me.
No, she was saying what I'm thinking is you just don't like Jewish people. That's not. And so again,
ain't nobody picking on you, Bishop.
No, it's disrespectful. I don't care about picking. She gonna pick anyway.
But even
they like all that crazy stuff that people do that was very disrespectful.
But again, then that leads to like a whole other thing. We can't.
Probably need to go to another issue because.
No, I think this to me, I think is important.
This is good dialogue.
Now, I personally think it's good. And I think that one of the things that's important for me as a Christian and biblically is that we're not supposed. The Bible talks about love, and love is not provoked. And the Bible says, "Blessed when people harm you or revile you." We're supposed to bless them, not turn away from them.
I ain't cursing. I'm blessing.
No, but you can't. But I think it's to do that. If someone differs in opinion and says you just hate Jewish people, it's like, well, no, I don't hate Jewish people. Why would you?
No, but that ain't. Some of these people been doing this stuff since I came out. This is not new today.
Here's the thing. You can always disagree with people. And not be offended.
Right.
Like you can disagree with someone and not become enemies.
Yeah. All the time.
I wholeheartily agree.
Me and my wife disagree all the time.
Right, but you also have a moral obligation to your wife, not somebody.
I have a moral obligation to humankind, to human people. Especially as a Christian, a pastor, I have a moral obligation to anybody. And that goes to say that I've helped my enemy. I've helped all kind of people.
Sure.
The people that's totally against me, I have tried to reach out and help and things like that. So I'm never like in a hateful, bitter, or vengeful type of thing. But I'm not going to have conversations with somebody that can't respect me.
But why? Like, I mean, you have conversations every
But
day.
I have too much respect for myself.
But we have conversations every day with people that don't respect us.
No, I don't.
Yeah,
Not if they've disrespected me.
You sat and talked to
In what way?
Bloomberg. He don't have no respect for you.
He respected me, bro.
No, yes,
he respected me.
No, he didn't. He'll write a policy right now to get you locked up.
I'm just talking about in
He don't
person
care
right
about
there.
you.
He respected me.
Because you a big brother.
Yeah.
You was the only one there. And he was like, this brother, and you on swole too? He was like, I might say something. My little security guard might get his earplug slapped out the side of his head.
Work like that.
Wow. Bishop might say, man, you better watch what you say, white boy.
Wow.
But so I just think, dude, I just think I just think it's inadequate to I don't think it was adequately shown that Bernie has Bernie has
Brisa says she just said that you rather vote for a candidate who's proclaimed Christian, not Jewish. She's never said it is hateful, right? She says that,
that you would vote for.
It's just right. Like she didn't say anything hateful.
Right. I don't think
so.
Yeah.
She said what you read is that she said that I'm not supporting Bernie because he's Jewish.
I mean, based on
right,
particular things, it would.
But that's neither here nor there. We can move on. We can move on.
Have someone
that's neither here nor there. We can move on.
But I just think it's important. I think when you look at all of what happened with Bloomberg, when you look at people's reaction to him, and
all the rest was not negative.
But we have never. I can't think of one time in San Diego that we ever let anybody else make the kind of apology that Bloomberg made and just accepted him into the fold. And I think a lot of people were getting paid. There were a lot of people who had a lot of reasons why they were willing to accept his apology. And there were a lot of pastors that were doing it too. And so what I'm saying is so for me, there are times where, and especially with no warning, I mean, I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed that Dr. Weber came out in support of Bloomberg. I'm disappointed. I personally think without any discussion about it, and like with just being like whatever, like that hurt a lot of people. It's a lot of gang members and people who are being stopped and who are being affected by the policies that these people make.
Bernie too.
All of them know, but they're
Bernie too.
I get it. But Bloomberg had a policy that was directly dealing with
Bernie supported a policy that led to mass incarceration.
Yep, and so
of a kind we never seen before.
Absolutely. But what you see,
was that?
The crime bill 94.
Oh, the 3 strikes rule.
Mm-hmm. All that stuff they had in there, bringing more resources to policing and the whole shebang, which led to states taking up.
That was your boy Clinton with that.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
It don't matter who they are.
Right. That was Clinton.
Well, and I understand.
But my thing is that when you bring that up, my thing is it's not so much that we should be still hating on Clinton or anybody or even Bernie on that, but it's more so how folks when they cherry pick who they want to call out and stuff.
But
you see what I'm saying? That's what I'm talking about.
But I guess all I'm saying though is that of giving a fair shake to somebody is what I'm saying. I'm not saying don't call people out on stuff. I'm saying if we're going to hold somebody to a standard of being unchristian, then in the things that they say, then we have to be equally as critical in someone being unchristian in the way that they go about doing things. And that's all I'm saying. Like, I don't know.
I mean,
I don't know Bloomberg. I just when I look at what he said, when I look at his campaign and how he's come out and the things that he said, he came out with a half-hearted apology that was like, hey, I'm sorry about what I did with Stop and Frisk. We was wrong. And by the way, I'm running for president right now, black people, and I'm going to come to your black church first and tell you. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into all these poor neighborhoods and I'm going to buy all these black people and get them to work with me. And all you
going over the same old things. I've already responded to all those. I don't know what else you want.
I think what's important, what I think is important is that we can't, I don't expect for community leaders to make these kinds of decisions without having conversations.
Nobody has any conversations with me about anybody that they support or what have you. It's a personal choice. We talk about civil rights and talk about our voting. That's a constitutional right and so on. So I do. And when you talk about support, I don't want nobody holding me accountable to something that they don't support me in, right? I don't get that kind of support for as a pastor, right? How many people have stopped through my church to visit all the work I do in the community? How many of them just stopped through the church and say, I come here to support you? How many of them have sent an offering to say, hey, let us help you with whatever? Nobody, right? And so when you talk about what I'm accountable to or responsible, I'm accountable to God, right? And that's who I went to, and that's who I turned to, and that's who I answer to. But when you talk about community and responsibility, the community, it has to be mutual. If you're going to, now I'm accountable to the members that I pastor and the folks that, because there's people in my church that support all different kind of candidates. And so we don't trip on those kind of issues. We love each other and we respect each other, right? And we don't do all this kind of stuff that's done in the world by people claiming to be Christians, but talk and act like sinners when they want to judge. The Bible says, judge not and you will not be judged. Do not condemn and you will not condemn. And so people, you can get me on anything that I say or that I do. That's fair game, right? But when you want to try to judge what's in my heart, it's completely wrong. When you want to try to shame me for supporting a candidate that you don't support, that's almost like voter suppression, because and those are some of the tactics that the Bernie supporters are doing, and that's why nationally Black people are not getting behind him.
But again, I think and I hear what you're saying, but I'm like, as a Christian though, I expect people to shame me and speak all kinds of manner of evil against me. I mean, if that was my standard for not talking to people,
for the Lord.
Yeah, but what I do, the way I look at policies and stuff.
When they got offended, he said, leave them alone. He said, they be blind, other blind guys are the blind. When they got offended, he said, leave them alone. The Bible says, come out from among them to be separated. You know what I mean? And so we have an obligation to our community, which is our Christian community, which are those that walk and share the same faith that we share, right?
Well, I think this has gone a long way, a long time.
How are we looking on time?
Almost 2 hours.
Oh, we still
Hour
got
47 minutes, 13 minutes. I wish that we had time to address all this stuff.
Oh, what's that?
Dude, there's been 115 comments on here.
Oh, someone with the Bloomberg.
No, there was stuff before that.
Brisa said she was gonna punch him in the throat.
No, she did.
I love you anyway.
No, she said the same thing. She said, "I love you, Bishop."
She said she got nunchucks with glitter on the bottoms.
I think I think that one of the things that happens a lot in our community is that I personally, I could never, if I ever became a community leader.
I'm not a community leader.
Why not?
I'm a pastor and I'm a spiritual leader.
Why you not a community leader?
Because I'm not a community leader. I'm a pastor. I'm not a guy. Now, as a pastor, yes, I'm a community organizer, different things like that. We work in community, but don't label me as a community leader.
So you're not.
I don't even like to be called an advocate for this or advocate for that, or civil rights, that, and all that kind of stuff. I'm more like a clergy leader, yes. I don't like to say spiritual because it's all over the place with that, but I'm a pastor.
But I think for the sake of, I mean, semantically speaking, we could dice it up. I get what you're saying, but I think at the end of the day, you are somebody that's recognized as a leader in the community, and people will follow the things that you have to say. So no matter how you slice it, I think what we have all too often in our community, and we've talked about this before, we have pastors and leaders in our community that are making decisions that are not being understood by community members, and it's causing people to lose faith in the faith leaders. And we talked about this before, and just let me.
I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that.
But wait. So we.
But you trying to giving.
Listen, what I'm saying. Remember, because we talked about this before.
But no, I don't agree with that, because what you're actually trying to say is that by me being a pastor, before I do anything, I have to get permission from the community to do it. I'm not a servant to the community. I serve the community, but I'm not a servant to the community. I don't answer to the community. I answer to God. The Bible said, Paul said, am I trying to please men or am I trying to please God? He said, if I'm trying to please men, I will no longer be a servant of God. Right? So I'm not in a popularity contest. I'm not trying to do like a lot of these people, just go along with the trend or whatever's going on. I'm trying to have the mind of God and try to do the right thing, which I believe where God has lead me in the spirit to do. Right? So now, am I always right? No, I don't think I'm right. I could be wrong. I don't see it that way, but I have to. The Bible talk about he that know the good he ought to do and doesn't do it, to him is sin. So I have to do the right thing. But what I believe is right. I'm not going to just do something to do it. If I do something, I do it because I really believe in it. And it doesn't matter what anybody think. Yeah. You know what I mean? As far as what they think or what they say, what don't like me or whatever you want to do.
Yeah, but I guess for me, I don't think that being concerned about the way my actions affect other people is me serving them.
Well, I think my actions are right, though. I think my actions are right. But people may disagree. That's fine, but I think my actions are right. I think I'm doing walking in the spirit, living the way God called me to live. You know what I mean? Yeah, but then I think too, how do we know that? Like, what rubric do we use to say that? Because, if I am in the community and I get mad at somebody and don't deal with them no more, and especially over something so controversial that is going to be known to make people think a certain way. And the scripture talks about, don't let your good be evil spoken of. So there's certain things that, even Jesus said. We can say this. There are so many different beliefs within Christendom. There's some people don't believe in voting and participating in politics at all. You know what I mean? So when we start getting there and trying to decrease certain things for certain people, we can really muddy the water because, there's all type of different beliefs and positions out there when it comes to what we're talking about here. I guess for me then, where I'm at, I just, when I understand the Bible to talk about Jesus giving himself as a ransom for all, the heart that God had, the scripture says, let this mind be in you that was also in Christ Jesus, who though being a man, considered it not robbery to make himself equal with God, but he humbled himself and became a servant. And he gave himself even to the point of death on the cross. So when I look at, when the Bible says, when Jesus stood before folks in judgment and he said, depart from me, you workers of iniquity. I don't know who you are. And they're like, well, wait, what are you talking about? Well, when I was hungry, you fed me. When I was naked, you clothed me. When I was in prison, you came to see me. I see these kinds of things and I hear defend the poor, the widows, whatever. Like, how do we do that? And I just feel that if I'm in a position where people are following me and they trust me, I think it's responsible for me to make sure that my intentions are clearly articulated to people that could be hurt by decisions that I make. Yeah, but I think it's in the Bible, it says that I'm supposed to conduct myself in such a way that doesn't cause people to stumble. Like even the Apostle Paul said, meat don't mean nothing. But if eating meat causes my brother to stumble, I ain't gonna never eat meat again. And so for me, I'm like, there's certain things that But you skipped over a part when he was talking about all that, and which is important. He said, no. He said, but that's not where I'm going. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying no, because that's not where I'm going. Okay, sorry. Is that he said, who are you to judge another servant? Yeah. And he said, to his own master, he stands for and talking about to God. He said, if he's doing it unto the Lord, then God is able to make him stand, right? And so that's the key. And I think that's what people miss. You do what you believe that is right before God, to serve him. And it's not for me to judge you on that. And I do what I believe is right to serve God. And it's not for you to judge me, because the Bible says, don't judge another servant. You don't supposed to do that, right? And so that's kind of what we're doing here. We're trying to cast judgment on someone else's servant. I serve the Lord. I don't answer to man, I answer to God, right? So nobody can set the rules for me but God's word and God.
No, and I get that. I feel the same way. I guess maybe we differ.
Yeah, we do. That's fine.
And some of the nuances because I feel extremely indebted to the consciences of other people.
My thing, of course, we got to love God with all our heart, all our mind, all our soul and strength, and love our neighbor as we love ourselves, right? And so we are indebted. The only debt we should owe is love, right? And love is talking about action and doing something, right? And so that is demonstrated every day. I'm a perfect no, but that is demonstrated every day in my life. Mm-hmm. Is a life of love, a life of care, and putting myself on the line for people, right? And so when you talk about the Christian principles and living holiness and so on, I put my best foot forward every day. And so I don't, to judge an individual based on who they support as a candidate, even if I said I'm supporting Trump, but I have specific reasons of why and where God is leading my heart, that's my choice.
Yeah, but here's what I say though.
That doesn't make me sinful or unholy.
No. But I don't. But I think if people look at you, and
no matter what I do, people gonna look at me sometimes.
I get it, but here's what I'm saying though. Here's what I was hoping that we were going to be able to do, and I was hoping that, and which is good that we're able to kind of talk about this now. Mm-hmm. And I think, and I talked to Tasha, and I talked about this during her campaign, that because she was running, there was going to be some issues in the community when people had to pick sides. Mm-hmm. And so we went about talking to certain people about stuff and having meetings talking because I knew that it was going to be a problem. Mm-hmm. Some people are going to have to make decisions, and we see kind of what happened. And sometimes it's inevitable that trouble and stuff is going to happen. But I feel like we at least need to make the effort to try and minimize the amount of damage by trying to bring an amount of understanding. And so when we have someone who comes into the community and gives what many, including myself, 100% feel about Bloomberg, that he made a half-hearted apology. Jumped up. No. But listen. I'm going somewhere with it. I'm saying if people perceive this half-hearted apology, dumped a whole bunch of money to try to purchase the trust of Black people, and then you got a whole bunch of pastors and people who are accepting money from him, and all of a sudden coming out and supporting him. If you are a pastor, you'll be lumped in with the rest of those ones. And so for me, what I would hope, and one of the things that I think is important, is to make my intentions clear to the people who actually look to me for something. I
already made that clear. People can believe what they want to believe, but online, when somebody questioned me about getting paid, I made that clear.
But I think even before, because then there's a lot of people going, dude, what happened? Like we hear fighting 1A 2.5 and all this kind of stuff, and from people
and still fighting stuff.
But part of what I look at is that there are people whose consciences are weaker. And so like for me to just be like, I don't care what you think of me, personally, I just could never say that. Like, I just could never be like, I don't care what you think of me. When it comes to like something that what we agree on.
The question you have to ask yourself is, does God see things the same way that we do? Right?
Yeah.
Oh, could they kick you off?
No. It's just because 2 hours is such a long time.
Okay.
But I think so. Here's what I think.
Does God see things the way we see them?
No, right? Of course not.
Okay.
Of course
exactly.
Not. Of course not. But I think that there's times that I'm wrong too, and that part of looking at the outcome of a decision, especially one that's not spiritual, that doesn't because whether you vote or not is not a spiritual matter. And if I'm going to take a stance against something that's controversial, like for me, right? Like for me, I'm like. I don't have we talked about this earlier, and this is kind of what I think. I support a lot of police officers. I don't have a general disdain for police. Mm-hmm. I'm like Tasha Williamson. I'm anti-rogue officer, 100%. Anybody that's rogue, I'm not with you. I don't want to be anti-corruption in any state, right? Period. Mm-hmm. But even though, so with the ministry that I do with the formerly incarcerated men and women, there was a time where the sister that she's super cool as heck. She's a police officer real cool, super down sister or whatever, you know what I mean? And so she stopped by one day. I brought her some smoke detectors. She asked me if I had, so I went and picked up some smoke detectors for her and brought them to her. And it just so happened to be at the church the night that we have our meeting. And she said, and she was kind of, what are you guys doing here? Blah, blah, blah. She was talking and I was telling her what we're doing. She was like, wow, that's really cool. Like, I want to really kind of help people who are in the LGBTQ space with housing and stuff like that. Do you mind if I come to your meeting to like kind of see what y'all doing? And I just was like, sis, to be honest with you, nah, we don't, like in the work that we do here, like we don't involve the police. Like I don't want the police coming into our meetings. This is just not, and you know that I don't have a problem with you. I love you personally, but I just can't bring you into this space to like, it just wouldn't be right. Like that's just not something, that we're gonna do. Like the police are never gonna be allowed to come in. Now they may come in if I let the family know prior. The police are going to come in to give a presentation, but to just sit in the meeting and be like, "No, we don't do that." Why? Because I know that that's something that's going to cause a problem. You know what I mean? And
So you're being responsible with, who you allowed to attend, and that's smart.
From the outside, anybody can come to the meeting from the community. You know what I'm saying? If you got a felony and you know, but like I just don't, we don't deal with the police.
I think it's really like it's really hard, right? Because what is the right thing to do at every moment, and when you talk about what people may think versus what to do,
Sure.
Not so much as like be concerned with people going to think all the time. Even though
Not all the time,
and I always say I don't care, but I do care. I do care what people think, but I don't let that stop me from making decisions that they're not gonna like.
Yeah, no, I get it. And I think too, I just think, one of the things that's very true. Now, I've been using this example a lot lately. And I think maybe sometimes this is what happens when we're indebted. I mean, when we're deep in our community and there's a lot of trial. That's the one thing that Tasha and I talked a lot about. And I wanted to at some point put something together that would help the people who are really kind of active in the community, especially y'all dealing with all the homicides and all the betrayal that happens with the police and other people and all this stuff. And I remember I was listening to Hank Hintergraf one day, the Bible Answer Man, and he went off on one of the callers that called. He says in snarky, or he just said fire. And I was like, wow, dude, it's a trip. Then I realized, wow, people who are entrenched in this work tend to be hurt a lot. And what I want to be careful for is that I don't let the pain and trauma that I felt in dealing with the community cause me to like not want to trust and love. And I'll end personally with this. My wife and I had a conversation about probably 2 months ago now. About 5 years ago, we looked at 1 Corinthians 13. Love is patient, love is kind, love believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things. Love doesn't provoke itself. It's not provoked. It doesn't puff itself up, right? It doesn't seek its own. It's not right. All of these things, right? And love never fails. But it wasn't until about 2 months ago that we were at our couples Bible study. Shout out to Monday Night Couples Bible Study. We went in faith. I was really just tired and I was really struggling. I didn't want to get a divorce, but I also didn't want to be home. It was just weird. I didn't realize it. And it just, one day it dawned on me, like, my problem is that I'm not loving my wife. And I really looked at that and I said, wow. And I told her I had to apologize. I'm like, I realized that we've been together 27 years. And I don't know that I've ever really loved you biblically with because love is patient. 1 Corinthians 13 is the components of love, not individually. You get 5. It's like the fruit of the spirit. Some people say fruits of the spirit. No, it's fruit. It's all of them. Yeah. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness. Those are all, that's evidence of the Holy Spirit living in us. Amen. And so I said, man, I had to apologize to my wife. And then what I started realizing is, man, I never really loved my mom. Mm-hmm. I never really biblically loved my dad. I didn't biblically love my kids, my siblings, my friends. And I was like, oh my goodness, bro. Like everybody had a condition at some point.
How did it make you feel when you realized that?
I felt bad because I'm like, man, my mom's dead now. My dad just died. I'm grateful for certain moments that I had. Thank God that God knew.
Well, why do you say you didn't biblically love?
Because I wasn't always patient and kind and believe all things.
But what does that mean? What does that mean in the relationship?
I developed a position of, at all costs, I'm going to protect myself. Here's what I determined in my. And it made sense to me. And I said, you know, what's the difference between poor people and rich people? To a degree, not all, but I'm saying just in general. One of the things I realized difference between poor people and rich people. Rich people, when they're going to invest, they focus on the investment and the potential, but they acknowledge the risk. They acknowledge it. Poor people focus on the risk and they acknowledge the potential, and that's why they stay poor. And I said, that's where I was at in love. If and this is a guaranteed bet. It's a guaranteed investment. The Bible says love never fails. And so I had to say to myself, wow, man, I have built up some walls in my life that won't let certain people get by because I don't want to get hurt anymore, man. I've been hurt so bad in my life, I built up a resistance. And so for me, I just said, man, I need to look at the way that I'm loving, and I'm having to examine some of my processes and some of the ways I'm viewing people. And it's like, and that's why I was like, man, and just for full transparency, Bishop and I stopped talking over this Bloomberg thing, and thank God, like we spoke on Wednesday, it was like, bro, what's going on? And we went outside and let's talk. And the thing I told you was, man, I ain't gonna let who you vote for stop the love that I have for you, bro. I love you, and that's what I was trying to tell your son when he was going ham on me. Like, bro, I love your dad for what he stands for. I don't love him because he's doing something for me. Your dad ain't giving me no money. He ain't never wrote no recommendation for me. Nothing. I love you for what you stand for. And it's the same with you, man. Me and Drew been rocking for 27 years or 22 years or whatever it is, or whatever it is. And it's like, man, I'm just looking at the processes that I've set up that have not allowed people that has not allowed me the opportunity to love people biblically because it's easier not to. And so that's just one of the things. And so for me, that's kind of the lens that I'm looking at. Like, if I'm going to do something that could cause a problem, it might offend somebody, even though it's right. If I have the opportunity to say, let's talk about this or whatever, like, hey, I know that you might see me a particular way, but let's talk about this and see what you think. And at least give them an opportunity to be like.
I think it depends on relationships with that.
Yeah, yeah.
But
that was just me. I end with that. But go ahead and give it like a year, maybe just do your ending, because we're at 2 minutes and 2 hours and 7. So what would you say as an end? And then Drew, I'll let you finish up if you want. Close us out.
Okay. Well, for sure,
not I'll let you go. Why don't you? Sure.
I agree with you when you talk about love, and I think we constantly grow when it comes to love. And I know 15, 16 years ago, whenever it was, when I went through my greatest crisis, that's when God showed me that I didn't have love all that time. And a lot of times what ended up happening is wherever we got saved and come up under, that is transmitted to us. And if it wasn't love, something else would be. And that's what Jesus said about the Pharisees. He said, you travel land and sea to win one convert. And when you do,
twice.
So I'm preaching message, love beat the hell out of me, because God loves us. And he shows us what love is by his this constant enduring of all our errors and flaws. And we have to do the same thing with people. But that does not mean we're not going to have conflict. That does not mean that we may say things to each other that we may regret later. That's what repentance is all about. Even when you look in the Bible with Paul and Peter, they had issues. Paul and Mark, they had issues. It got so deep that Barnabas and him split up and so on. And so we know that, that's just a human flaw that we have. And if we were perfect, we would live in a perfect world, then we wouldn't have no need for repentance and things like that. But we're constantly growing in love. And but I think the big problem that we have, at least from a spiritual lens, when I look and see, is that we are constantly judging people. And the Bible talks about the tongue. The tongue is an unruly evil, and it is full of deadly poison. And James said, if a man can tame his tongue, he can control his whole body, whole life, right? And that's part of the problem that we have. But that's something that we have to learn, grow, and put up with each other on as we build relationships with each other, right? Especially in the body of Christ, and in our various, for lack of a better way to say, in our various denominations, we have different practices, different beliefs, and things like that. And if we love each other, we will respect that. We'll respect a person's decision or whatever you may, whether you agree with it or disagree with it, whether your philosophy is different than anybody else's philosophy, and so on, and move on. There are clear-cut practices and behaviors and attitudes that are sinful. We must address that. When it's anything I do that's sinful, rebuke me, correct me, tell me, you know what I mean, so I can repent. Because I don't want to go to hell over sin. But I think a lot of stuff, like the scripture you started in talking about the eating meat and things, that was in talking about receive your weak brother, Romans 14. But a part of that is, he said, receive each other on disputable matters. Things that are disputable, we shouldn't allow that to separate us or allow that to cause havoc between us, right? He said receive. And what I used to tell my brothers, pastors, that of my faith, when we got in disagreements and things, because I'm way more conservative, strict than some of them, it's like, maybe I'm the one with the weak faith. So have some mercy on me. You know, this is where I stand. Don't force me to do something that my conscience is not going to allow me to do, right? So if Paul said receive those with weak faith and over disputable matters, then maybe I'm that person, you know? But a lot of times what we want everybody to rise to my level of thinking, my level of attitude of where I am, versus receiving people for who they are, loving them for who they are.
I appreciate that transparency.
And
That's beautiful. I like that.
Yeah, so the thing, and I, you know, all my life I always looked at that. You know, there was a time where I thought I was right and couldn't be wrong, till God started showing me a lot of things I was wrong about, even in my own faith. So I recognize the fact that we grow every day, and we're not perfect in knowledge and don't know everything. But Paul told Timothy, continue in the things you have learned and being convinced of. And so unless I can be fully persuaded through scriptures to change my mind on something, I'm gonna stand where I am until God or the revelation come to show me differently, right? And we should all do that. But sometimes people mistake that as being stubborn, stiff-necked, hard-headed, thinking you always right, everybody's wrong. It's not that. You're just standing on what you believe, you know. Otherwise, you'll be like Paul talks about in Ephesians, being tossed and to and fro by every wind of doctrine. Everything come along. Like James said, double-minded man, you're like the last person you talk to. You know, we can't be that. We got to have some principles that guide us. And I'm just a man of principles, and I got principles that guide me.
Appreciate it. That's good stuff. Big Dog Phil, take us home, brother.
Well, one of the things that I learned from today is there's two things that really, you know, kind of, you know, stick out in my mind. To kind of touch on what you had spoken of earlier about, you know, going through things with your wife. I think what happens over time is, you know, we evolve, right? So two things take place in your lifetime, hopefully, if you love it. Personal growth and personal evolution, right? Now, growth to me is, you know, like on a personal level, it's like, you know, you were once way, you changed, right? And then, you know, now you kind of, you know, it's like how you know, grow in certain things. But to me, like an evolution and evolving on a personal level, it's like you almost have a change in direction as far as like philosophy and how you reason and arrive at the conclusion that you make. Like that's the stuff that, you know, not only affects you personally, but the people around you. Why? Because, you know, when you came to the realization that you don't love people biblically, or you never have, right? Growth allows you to see that, but, you know, personal evolution, now you're like, well, you know what, I need to change, I need to make these changes about myself, and here's how it's going to affect, you know, my family, because you got to look at it. What goes on in your household, you know, is what affects you on a personal level, and everybody actually lives on, and then, you know, everything else is, you know, second and third degree. Another thing that I want to touch on too is patience, right? Sometimes we got to have the patience to deal with people. You know, y'all was beefing over some nonsense and he didn't talk to you for 3 weeks. I was about to throw my cup of coffee out, empty cup. Why? Because there should be nothing that, you know, comes between us as friends first, or family, that we should, you know, stop talking to each other. Why? Because I think dialogue, just about every kind of dialogue, should be healthy and it should be good. And it's okay to disagree, right? Because if you disagree, even, you know, philosophically, for whatever reason, it's not because, it's a person. I just see things different. And that's the virtue of, dialogue, to be able to see things or hear a different perspective on the same thing that you see, right? But also too, with patience, it allows you to, kind of hear and interpret as best you know how. And then you deal with that the best way you know how. And I think that, we have the patience with each other, right? And the humility to kind of deal with each other and kind of listen to everybody else's opinion on things, because, there's two types of things. You got fact-based and you got opinion-based, right? And I think fact-based carries way more merit, but opinion-based is also valuable, right? Because it's, fact-based can really comes down to statistics and numbers, but I'm gonna always ask, how do you feel about something?
Right.
Because that's your opinion on something, and that's what makes us human. Is we're able to, have an opinion on things. Right now, you can vote for someone, or you can align yourself politically with someone who has the best numbers, X, Y, and Z. But if you don't like them as a person, that's your opinion, and that's probably going to sway how you, choose or who. So one of the biggest takeaways is that I'll never allow politics and what I see on TV affect what goes on in my household or the people around me. And that's just, that's just a way that I've become over time. And I learned how to, kind of be a critical thinker when I was in college, because, why we think the way we think is equally as important as what we think, and, learning about that is what really, kind of helps you, arrive at the decisions and conclusions that you make. And that's all I have to say about that.
That's good. Well, man, thank you all everybody that stayed the entire time to,
Brisa said your experience and background also formulated your opinion and shouldn't be discredited.
That totally agree. Absolutely.
Thank you, Brisa.
Brisa, thank you, Queen, Tasha, Kira, thank you, Dr. Green. Sorry, Dr. Green.
Oh, wow, she's a doctor.
Thank you for that. Absolutely. Drew, thank you for your time. I think Sister Tammy might have said something. But man, just so many people, 124 comments on this particular post right here. So everybody join in.
Craig.
Ms. Laster. Yeah, Craig joined in. Ms. Laster, thank you for your comments. Wish that we would have had a chance to.
I'm gonna start doing it. I'm gonna start sharing the comments.
Yeah, no, that's good. No, thank you. That's good.
The great dialogue.
That's good. That's real good.
Brisa was blowing this thing.
No, Brisa's good. I appreciate people's experiences and the work that they've done and how they view stuff, So we may disagree or whatever, but at the end of the day, like, we're all a part of the community, and the things that we do affect each other. So thank you, everybody.
But let me just say this in closing, everybody interjecting. One of the things that kind of like, I don't know if it bothered me, concerned me, or just shook me, or what have you, is people that say they love me and know me, and the way I was dragged through the mud, nobody stepped and say, hey, this is wrong.
When did you get dragged through the mud?
Since I came out with Bloomberg. A lot of things people ain't seen, whether it's on Twitter or Instagram and Facebook. You were saying certain things to me, and I'm like, I never saw none of that. And stuff like that.
I never saw anything.
And so, but I mean, that's cool. But I'm just saying that there are people that, even if you disagree, there's some things that people should be able to step forward with integrity and say, that's out of line. Well, but you know what I mean? Yeah. That's out of line. You shouldn't. We don't do that here.
But you know what though? There's a thing that I learned in anger management. Mm-hmm. You always gotta fight fair.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Fight fair. Right.
And I didn't attack anybody personally.
Right. You gotta. There's a certain thing called fighting fair. You have to just.
Well, I think one of the things that I think, and let's, that was one of the reasons why 2 weeks ago, like, I text you like, man, I said, man, I've been gone. I'm finally back. Let's sit down and talk, man. This is great. I think this is good. Like, there's so much happening. Let's have a conversation. And we weren't able to do that. So I wanted to talk to you, and I wanted to figure out where you was at and why are you believing this? I was tripping. Like, you man, you done came all the way out. Like, what? And I knew, like, but like, what? I didn't know what to say or do. Like, I'm like, I can understand why people feel that the way that they feel if they like see something so surprising. And I don't expect it, you know what I mean? But so I'm like, I can see why people would view you that way. That's why I'm like, well, I don't.
People can't talk love and respect.
But we
and all
can't.
that.
But we can't expect other. I would
Even when
expect
we
from
talk
you.
about-
I would expect from you something different than I expect from most of my other relationships.
Absolutely.
So yeah. So one of the things we have to do, and like this part of being a leader, you know what I'm saying, is that we have to, like, there's things will be misunderstood and all that.
I understand that.
Yeah. And so, but at the end of the day, man, thank you all for
Thank you.
being here so long. Sis, I would love for us to be able to sit down and dialogue about some of the work that you're doing and stuff, because one of the things that happens in our community too is just we just don't have enough information to make all these, there's so many decisions. So maybe one day you could sit and be a part of our conversation and come and get some of this good coffee at Drew's spot right here. This is really nice. They have a really expensive Keurig.
Yeah.
So we love you all. Thank you for spending your time with us. We love you. And my hope and my prayer is that you would have an incredible week. Again, thank you for all the work that you do. And no.
Don't call me Dr. Green. I love
You earned that. You earned that.
Doctor from
He gonna start.
Concord.
Don't even respond. Don't respond to him, Dr. Green. He don't know.
Remember what-
Sister, don't. He don't know what he's doing right now. I'm gonna end this
What
video.
was
She
it?
gonna come over here right now, bro.
Girl that was on the footbridge going to TJ. Remember that commercial?
We
She was
love-
like, "Oh, you want to be a nurse assistant, medical assistant?"
This dude. So
What is your
that would be
doctorate?
good. That would be awesome.
Dr. Green, what is your doctorate in?
Sociology. She just said that, bro. Come on, man. Don't make her. She
thought she was-
sweet. So anyway, but we love you all. Thank you so much for all the conversation. I wish that we would have had a chance to answer all the questions and but this is why we talk
Reason was
about
going on.
but we talk about volatile things because that's what we do. I believe that we're mature enough to have conversations, and we can fight and disagree, and these conversations sometimes take time to work out or whatever. So glad that we could have them. Thank you all for being a part of it. We love you, and Lord willing, we'll see you next week. Peace. So we hope. There we go. Oops. Almost ended. End. Don't start cussing yet.